reading before. We will first have public hearings, followed by an administrative calendar. There are agendas in the rear of the pavilion if you'd like one, and if you'd like to be heard on any matter, you can fill out a slip and give it to one of our public safety officers. After the meeting is adjourned, we will follow our tradition of remaining in session to hear residents on any other matters that they'd like to address with the town board. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino?
Here.
Councilman Blakey?
Here.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
Here.
Councilman Dunn?
Here.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Here.
Supervisor Gill?
Here. I would like to ask Councilwoman Erin King Sweeney to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
And of your heart, please join with me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we're seated, I would like to just observe a moment of silence to remember the victims that were lost in the Florida school shooting last week. Thank you. You can be seated. Madam Clerk, would you please call the first public hearing?
Yes. Petition of Commissioner of Buildings to demolish and remove the 1 1/2 story wood frame, one-family dwelling with attached garage and remove all litter and debris from property in Levittown.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino?
Aye.
Councilman Blakey?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
And Supervisor Gill?
Aye. Madam Clerk, will you please call the second public hearing?
Petition of Commissioner of Buildings to demolish and remove the in-ground swimming pool and remove all litter and debris from property in Roosevelt.
I do not have any slips on this matter. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and the item adopted. Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino?
Aye.
Councilman Blakey?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Supervisor Gill?
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Petition of Commissioner of Buildings to demolish and remove the 1 1/2 story wood frame, one-family dwelling with attached garage and remove all litter and debris from property in Wantagh.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard?
Supervisor, move that the hearing be closed and the item adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino?
Aye.
Councilman Blakey?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
And Supervisor Gill?
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding regulations and restrictions to limit parking in Oceanside.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and the item be adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino?
Aye.
Councilman Blakey?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Supervisor Gill?
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding parking or standing prohibitions in Wantagh and Franklin Square.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard?
Supervisor, I move that the hearing be closed and the item adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino? Councilman Blakey?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito? Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Supervisor Gill?
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding arterial stops in North Valley Stream near Westbury.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Supervisor, I move the public hearing be closed and proposed local law adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino?
Aye.
Councilman Blakey?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Supervisor Gill?
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding U-turn prohibitions in Levittown.
I don't have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and we adopt the message.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazita.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding traffic regulations in the vicinity of schools in Elmont.
Okay, I have a number of slips on this hearing. First, we have Sheldon and Michelle Miko. Please approach the table and state your name and address for the record.
It's my first time in one of these, so should I have a seat or a
Yes,
precedent?
please have a seat.
Oh, thank you.
And just please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sheldon Meikle. I am a parent, and I'd like to think I'm representing most of the parents at Elmont Memorial High School in particular. Sheldon Meikle. State my position.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, sorry. So the reason we're here this evening is there's been an ongoing issue with in front of Elmont Memorial. The street is called Ridge Road that right now is two-way. So we have a lot of the problems that has to do with safety and the children actually getting dropped off in the morning or in the afternoons and crossing the street. So I believe Councilman Ambrosino actually met with the principal of the school, Principal Doherty. Unfortunately, he had to be away, and that's why he asked me to speak on his behalf. And basically what we're looking at is hopefully to have Ridgeway as a one-way between just the front of the school, not the whole stretch of street. Because of course, safety is paramount, and we think right now we just have to put the children first. From what I understand, we wanted to do a trial run on the matter in case, in the event that it created more of a congestion. But to do nothing is, I don't think makes any sense. So right now, this has come up on the plate a couple years ago, and it came back again with Principal Doherty. He's a new principal to the school, maybe 2 years now. And we're really in favor of giving this a trial run and seeing how it works out. Again, if it works out, great, fantastic, move forward. If it doesn't, we'll take another look at what's going on with it.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Supervisor, thank you very much for being here. At this time, I'd like to introduce into the record a letter that was sent to the supervisor of Hempstead, the Honorable Laura Gillen, CC the town attorney, from Principal Doherty, recommending that this change be implemented, itemizing the safety concerns. I'd like to just make this part of the record as part of the hearing.
Yes, Supervisor, I would also like to make some remarks. I'd like to thank my colleague, Councilman Ambrosino, for taking the lead on this. We're both proud to share Elmont. My colleague has about 2/3 of it, and I have about 1/3 of it, but we always work together when it comes to Elmont. My only question is the basketball team going to repeat as state champs?
Well, actually, we're kind of blessed right now. The women's basketball is doing fantastic, and the mother of Zanaya, who's actually one of our star players, and she's all over the newspapers right now. She's actually in the audience here, representing Elmont as well.
Congratulations.
Remember that name, Zanaya Thibault. You'll hear it. And the men's basketball, the boys basketball, they're coming along. They come on. My son actually plays football, so and I'm actually a parent of the Spartans Club. I'm one of the volunteers. I'm also a volunteer at the PTA. I'm also a volunteer with the Proficiency Journey, where we're trying to bring all the schools together and tackle diversity right now.
Well, thank you very much for all that hard work. And by the way, shifting from sports to academics, a good friend of both Councilman Ambrosino and myself is the very famous author Nelson DeMille. And he is a graduate of Elmont Memorial. I'm very proud. And we're going to look to do something with the school district this year and have maybe him come and lecture the students on what it's like to be an author. So
we look forward to having some alumni. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Hopefully this goes a lot faster, so if I took up more time and get home and get dinner, get home safe. Good night.
Thank you. Next, we have Evelyn Schultz.
Decline to speak at this time.
Next, we have Cheryl Hauk. Next, we have David Fields. State your name and address for the record, please.
David Fields, 558 Ridge Road. I am actually a resident on the road that we're having all the issues with. At this time, I know we're trying to put this whole trial period into place. Big part of the problem for the last 10 years is constant U-turns on the street. Talk about safety. I think this is something that we need to look into first of all before we even take in our two-way street away from us. It's a big inconvenience for the neighbors. We can't get out our driveways in the morning, and no one is doing anything, and we feel like no one is doing anything about it. My wife would speak also, and she's constantly on email to the principal. I know should know her name very well by now, but don't actually know who she is. But this is a constant problem. We have reached out to the precinct, the local precinct, to help us just to have a squad car there in the morning. Nothing has happened of the sort. I can guarantee you there's an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon where we can have 12 U-turns on the street with about 4 no U-turn signs that everyone can see.
Madam Supervisor? Just to that point, we share your concerns, and one of the impetus for making this change and making it one way during the morning and the afternoon will eliminate the ability of making a U-turn. So that should solve your problem. Okay,
but if I thought that would work right off the bat, I would agree with it. How about all the buses that are there? So that means then you're going to have the traffic double parking next to the buses then. There are constantly 3-4 buses there, either in the morning or in the evening.
Well, that's something, why don't we meet with the school and we can work on that? We're doing this for the school. We can sit down with them and work on a better traffic flow program to assist you.
And Mr. Fields, as the previous speaker said, this is a trial situation. We're going to see how it works out. You may come back here and say, you know what, it's working well. You may say it's a disaster. We got to relook at it. We're just trying it on a trial basis.
What's bothering me is the main road is Dutch Broadway. We're coming in from that with 2 streets. And we're going to have the single lane in between the 2 streets. Dutch Broadway is the main road out of there. What's going to happen with the bottleneck that we have now to get onto Dutch Broadway? There's a bottleneck there every morning.
Well, you're going to have the same number of vehicles, so I'm not sure that that's going to change very much. But let's see how it works out. We appreciate you coming here and sharing your concerns. You may be right, and then again, you may be wrong. We're going to give it a try, see what happens.
It is a trial period, and we can also reach out to the precinct to make sure that there's enforcement of the no U-turn.
How does we get help with that? Precinct ignores us completely.
We can reach out to the precinct and get them involved.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we have Margaret Fields. Could you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Fields, 558 Ridge Road.
You can go ahead with your comments.
I read the letter when you stated about concern about safety, the idea of installing the one way in that one area, and to do something that is going to be constructive and something to make a difference for the residents of Ridge Road. We need to make that road a permanent one-way street coming off of Dutch Broadway. No one adhered to the law. You have tried to get in and out of your driveway, like my husband just stated. You cannot get out. People are parked in your driveway. You're coming out and they're right behind you. No one in this panel lives on Ridge Road and experience the daily nuisance that we go through every single day, right? In addition to the buses. So to do something that will make a difference, it should be a permanent one-way street. The parents, there'll be safety because the kids don't have to cross the street. They're coming off of Dutch Broadway on the right side of the school to let their kids off, and they can go right here. No one has to cross because
kids are trying to cross and people are coming from behind to, and the kids can't, that's where they're gonna have an accident. So if safety is the main concern, it needs to be a permanent one-way. It's like the airport. You stop, you drop the kids off, and you keep on moving, and you go on out. It should be a permanent one-way. And that is the only thing that's going to work. They would stop the parking on our side of the street, and we can live a comfortable residential life. Now, Almond Moroni is a fantastic school. Now, their curriculum is 14 hours a day. It's not from 7 to 3. It's until 10 at night. Almost every single night of the week, there's activities going on there. So we experience traffic all day long. I go to work, I come home at 8, 9, there's a big event going on, I can't get in. It's always a problem. It's a 14-hour curriculum every single day of the week, including on Saturday when they have their games. So we are constantly not having a residential life on Ridge Road. So the only thing that will help, maybe, if you all really want to do something and make a difference, make it a one-way street. Don't let this trial thing, it's not going to work. I can tell you, it's not going to, they don't obey new signs. How are you going to enforce them, telling them that this from here to here is a one-way? Who is going to pay attention to that? You have big new signs, they look at the sign and they turn right in front of you. Who is going to enforce that? That limited space of one-way is going to take place. If you call the cops, they tell you to call security. I'm tired of emailing Mr. Doherty about issues, which he does handle, but it's just too much. And again, in addition to the buses bringing the kids to the school, the buses should take the buses into the schoolyard and have the kids let off in the schoolyard. It shouldn't be in the street. For whether it's two-way and the bus, you have to stop. It's a small street. So, I mean, the buses should be, and I called transportation last week. The buses are idling for 20, 15 minutes in the morning, in the afternoon, and they said, oh, that shouldn't be. Did they do anything about it? No, same pattern followed. Nothing is done. So if you're all really serious about doing something for the residents of Ridge Road, because you do pay residential taxes still about there, we need to make it a one-way street and have the traffic keep flowing. It's like an airport drop-off. You drop them off and keep moving straight on out. And that's my take on it. To do something meaningful and something that's going to be worthy of our life, to improve the quality of our life there. Because I work every day I come home, it's a 14-hour day school over there. So,
thank you very much for your input. So it would be fair to say that if you're in favor of a permanent one-way, you're surely in favor of a one-way testing it, and then we can eventually evolve that to a one-way permit to work out the kinks.
exactly.
Okay, so you're in favor of it. That's what I mean.
Yeah, one way from Dutch Broadway. Or the safety issue eliminated. U-turns eliminated. You wouldn't have any of those issues.
Maybe we can get there, but this will be a step, but we're making it one way right now. Let's see how it works, but thank you for your support.
Okay.
And Mrs. Fields, I'll tell you, I actually live right across from the school, so I experienced firsthand some of the issues you're talking about. Our concern is making sure that the children are safe and that you are safe, and we're the reason we're doing this trial is to explore ways we can do that, to make sure it's something that works both for you and for the school.
And the other thing they have to realize is our master bedrooms are all facing Ridge Road and those homes. So the minute that school bus pull up, boom, you hear it. It pulls up, boom, you hear it. So I mean, we really don't have any peace at all. So I mean, like I said, to do something that is going to be effective, that's going to be noteworthy, that's going to work. It's a one-way street, one way, in and out, they keep going straight. That's the solution. Safety, U-turns, all that will be taken care of.
Just for the record, I also grew up across the street from a school, the other memorial, Valley Stream Memorial. I grew up right across the street. We haven't even talked about the snowball fights after school, so.
But I mean, times have changed, and I think we have like double the amount of before, 10 years ago, 15, we didn't have this much traffic, and these unruly parents that are doing whatever they want, coming into your driveway and they just don't care. I mean, 15 years ago, I would not have sat here and complained about anything. I would not have. So things are different.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. I do not have any more slips on this matter. Is there anybody else who wishes to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Supervisor, in light of the safety concerns and the need to implement this program as soon as possible, I'm going to deviate from custom and practice, and I'm going to ask that the public hearing be closed and the proposed local law be immediately adopted.
I second.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blake.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Determining parcels benefited by construction or reconstruction of sidewalk area in Baldwin, Belmore, Bethpage, East Meadow, Elmont, Floral Park, Franklin Square, Garden City South, Hewlett, Inwood, Lawrence, Merrick, North Baldwin, North Belmore, North Merrick, Oceanside, Roosevelt, Seaford, South Hempstead, Valley Stream, Wantagh, West Hempstead, Westbury, and Woodmere.
Did we leave anything?
Do I sound like a train conductor?
Yes. I do not have any slips on this matter. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard?
Rita Meredith, Baldwin resident, and I'm curious as to the locations in, I guess, Baldwin, North Baldwin. Why is it designated that way unless they were going by what is the postal location? But we have a problem again when we keep delineating our locations. It's Baldwin. We got one zip code. We need to make sure that we keep that consistent. But I'm curious as to what these parcels are that benefited from the construction and reconstruction of the sidewalk, because our roads are tore up. So I'm just curious as to how these sidewalks are getting fixed and the roads are not.
Commissioner, can you help us, Commissioner? Thank you.
Good evening, Supervisor, Town Board. These are parcels that the residents took advantage of the Town of Hempstead Sidewalk program, where they can have their sidewalks redone where there were tripping hazards, there were trees lifting the sidewalks. They can have it done and put on their taxes, on their tax bill. So this work has already been completed, and this is going to do the warrants to have the county put on the assessment.
And is completed at the request of the residents, is that
Request
correct?
the residents, and they pay for it.
So the residents are paying for this?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the benefit of this program?
Benefit is a resident, if they need to have 15 flags in front of their house done, they don't have the money to do it, but we have to have them do it because it's a tripping hazard. They can now have it done with no money out of pocket and pay for it over the 5 years.
Okay, so it's kind of a graduated payment process.
Yes.
The work that's done.
Yes.
And how is this program promoted to the residents so that more residents are aware of this?
When we go out to inspect the sidewalk, if there was complaint, if there's some type of issue, most of the time we will tell the resident that this is available to them. It's on the website under the Highway Department.
Okay, so this is something that's on the website.
Yes, this has been a long running program.
Okay, because I'm pretty sure that there are quite a few residents that aren't aware of this program. And again, why is it broken down with Baldwin and North Baldwin?
It probably has to do with the taxing jurisdiction, the assessment rolls. Whatever comes in from the county, that's what we do. We're not setting the towns.
Okay. So there's no other fiscal impact on residents overall with regard to this program?
There's no impact on any other residents than the resident of that house or that property.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. But again, as I said, I'm glad that we have these types of programs and services for the sidewalks, but we really need to start looking at working together between the town and the county because the roads are in very bad shape. We have a lot of residents, particularly elderly residents, who are having issues, not only personally, but with their own vehicles because the cracks and crevices on these streets. And, you know, it's hard to kind of delineate which is a town road, which is a county road, and the list is becoming endless as far as trying to get this information out to get it fixed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to be heard on this public hearing?
I move that the public hearing be closed and that the item be adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino.
Aye.
Councilman Blake.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed lease agreement for use of space on the Water District's property and water tank in Roosevelt Field Water Department, Westbury.
I have no slips on this matter. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard?
Supervisor, if I may, I just have a couple questions for Commissioner Reinhardt. Good evening, Commissioner. How are you? Just a quick question. The revenue generated by T-Mobile on these for the water districts, does it go directly to the district?
In accordance with the New York State law, Section 198, any revenue generated from the sale or lease of real property goes to the district to which owns the property.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Mary Ellen Cray, 436 Locust Avenue, Uniondale. I'm just wondering how many of these cell towers are added to each of the water towers?
The hearing here is to put 12 antennas on one tower.
12 on one.
Yes.
And is there a max set by law, or it could be 100?
Now, when each application comes through, the companies making the installation do a structural analysis of the water tower to determine where and if it can bear the load.
I see. Do you have any idea about how much the tower that they attach weighs?
The equipment that they're adding, the antennas are about 25 to 30 pounds each, which is nothing when you consider the tower is holding 1.5 gallons of water. It's a very, very small, but they do a structural analysis either way.
And about how tall are they?
This particular tower is 174 feet tall. Above ground.
Above ground?
Above ground.
But it's added to our water tower, right?
No, the water tower is 174 feet, they're putting it at 147 feet on the tower.
Okay.
So they're putting it midway up the tower.
Midway up.
Yes.
And how high is their tower extend?
No, it's a small antenna, it's about 4 feet, about 4 feet long, yeah, just bolts to the side of the tower.
Commissioner, if I may, just for the record, the question that I asked pertaining to the funding that comes from these cell towers, your answer that they go directly to the district following protocol, that is the case for both item 10 and 11, the Roosevelt Field Water District and the Uniondale Water District, correct?
That'd be correct.
Thank you.
Yes, good evening, Pearl Jacobs, President of the Milton Garden Civic Association, Uniondale. I have a question regarding the Roosevelt Field Water District. Is there such a thing?
Yes, there is.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, because I see here it was on Dibley Drive, which I know that area, as far as the maps are concerned, encompasses Uniondale. So you're saying that they have segmented out a section called Roosevelt Field Water District?
The Roosevelt Field Water District was incorporated, I believe, in 1956. Correct. 1963. Sorry.
The Roosevelt Field is actually it's a place. It's a shopping center, right? Is it a designated place?
There is a special district that was formed of the properties that lie within that corporate limit for the Roosevelt Field Water District to create a water district for that area.
Okay, I'll follow up on that. Thank you. And also another question regarding the cell sites, right? The cell towers. How far? What range does that encompass? The cell site. Would that cell site encompass other areas as far as in as far as, do you know the range?
Oh, I'm not a telecommunications engineer,
Right.
But the coverage area depends on the type of frequency, bandwidth they're using, the mounting location on the tower. There's a lot of different things.
And you wouldn't have that information, no?
I don't have that information, no.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on this item? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Supervisor, I move that the public hearing be closed and the item be adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Padrón.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed lease agreement for use of space in the Water District's Uniondale Water Tank and property in the Uniondale Water District, Uniondale.
I have a slip from Wayne Smith on this hearing.
Yeah, I just was here in case you had questions.
Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on this hearing?
Mary Ellen Cray, 436 Locust Avenue, Uniondale. So now, I'm trying to figure out, are there currently 12 different carriers with antennas on the Uniondale water, how many are on the Uniondale water district? Is it the same number?
The Union Water, this hearing is for renewal of an existing lease with T-Mobile to install 12 antennas there.
Install 12, so they have 12 all around.
Correct.
So, and they're the only cell phone carrier that has any on our water tower?
No, this particular site also has another carrier on it.
Oh, and the other carrier is?
This one has Sprint, is the other carrier.
Interesting. And Sprint has how many?
Sprint, I believe, has... Sprint has 9.
And again, they're just attached around the outside.
Correct.
How high up did you say they were, please?
On this one, I believe they are about, I'll tell you exactly what the drawing is. They're 128 feet above grade on this one.
And the tower itself is 100?
This one is 140 feet.
Thank you so much.
Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on this item?
Patty Harrison, Uniondale, New York. I would like to know for the towers, when they start building around in the Hall Patterson, will these towers be coming down?
No, this is a long-term lease for some towers on, some antennas on the water tower.
How much radiation comes off of it? Because it's near schools and it's near residents.
These antennas have been on this tower now for 15 years. This is a new lease, this is a renewal of an existing lease.
I don't think the residents of Uniondale know that.
The original leases were passed, there was a public hearing as well for them.
Are you proposing that we remove cell towers from the town of Hempstead?
Yes. I oppose that you move from Uniondale, where they're supposed to be building up for residents to be living there soon. That's what I propose, and it's near a school.
That's right.
I don't think there's any evidence that cell towers affect anybody's health,
Oh, yes, sir.
and that they're located throughout the world in every community, and you wouldn't have cell service without them.
I just saw a seminar on it.
So, I think this is a given in this day and age.
Maybe a given, but this day and age, that little property that's in Uniondale, that's a hot commodity. And for some reason, everybody wants to build up over there and use that property when it was left for the community. And we have no say so what's going over there.
Well, for the record, this is a revenue source for the water district to keep the costs down by allowing them to put the antennas on a structure that is high enough for them to be effective. They could have put it on a private building, they could have put it on various different buildings, they could have built their own tower. The fact that they're putting it on the water district tower saves them money and it gives us a revenue source, so it's a win-win for everybody.
Maybe for you, but maybe not for the residents. Because have you tested how much radiation is over there? Or in the soil from their towers?
The federal government has strict regulations on on what the emissions are, and these antennas are tested, and as well as the backup, the backup. Sort of looking for, Commissioner, the things on the ground, the backup utilities that they have, and it's tested. The generators are all tested and are well within the federal limits.
Have you tested people that live around them? Do you know how many of them have cancer from it? Yes. From them living near it?
Do you have any results that you'd like to share with us?
No, I'm asking a question. The first time I've seen this, so I'm asking a question. Have they tested any of the residents that live near it? Or do they know how many have cancer from it? In that area?
Commissioner, if I may.
How has been there?
First, how long have you been with the town of Hempstead Water Department?
Since 2006.
Okay, and since then we've had contracts with cell phone providers in order to put these antennas up, and obviously stretching far prior to your...
Since 1991 we've been in contracts.
And in how many other communities do we have cell towers?
In our district?
Yeah.
All 6 water districts.
Okay, and have we ever had any issues or any concerns and any, good evidence that provided to us that any of these cell towers, get anyone sick, cause any disease?
No, and I think Ms. Rock can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the Telecommunications Act prohibits any of that sort of information as even being relevant in these hearings because it's a technology that's been installed and tested repeatedly. Is that?
That's, you can't, a municipality cannot use health reasons as a reason to prohibit a cell tower under the federal law.
The cell towers have pretty much become a daily sort of fixture in our communities, and the water districts having very large, able structures utilize these in an effort to keep water rates in an affordable level. The antennas are going to go up somewhere, and these are the least intrusive methods of installing them in most communities.
We're exposing to 100 million times more electronically radiation than other grandparents were. And part of the reason is radiation from cell towers, home cell towers.
Well, if you'd like to submit that to us, you can print out what you have and submit it to us and we'll look at it. But these cell towers also provide service to the residents. They give them the ability to have connectivity, isn't that correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on this matter? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and that the item be adopted. Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Ambrosino.
Aye.
Councilman Blakely.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. That concludes our public hearings. Yes. So, Madam Clerk, would you please call the decision calendar?
Yes, there is one item on the decision calendar, which is the application of ECAM Same Cattery for a variance from provisions of GSS ordinance to convert 3 service bays into a convenience store and waive off street parking located on the south side of Rosedale Avenue, 464 west of Park Lane in North Woodmere.
Yes, Madam Supervisor, I move that the application be granted.
Second.
With the restrictions and covenants contained therein by the building department.
I still second.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino.
Aye.
Councilman Blakely.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, would you please call the administrative calendar?
Yes, Supervisor. On the administrative calendar this evening, we have items 13 through 50.
Would any of the council members like to sever any items on the administrative calendar?
Supervisor, I will sever items number 49 and 50.
Okay, may I have a motion on the rest of the administrative calendar?
Yes, Supervisor, regarding items 13 through 48, I move that those items be approved.
Second.
I have a number of slips on the administrative calendar. First, I had Felix Procacci.
Felix Procacci, 1165 Barn Street, Franklin Square, New York. On item number 41, the personnel issues, once again, I oppose all non-contractual raises until the CBA is adjudicated, until we find out whether that's something we have to hold to, because as I said time and time again, that is a benefit that all employees were given. You know, having a lifetime salary guaranteed is a benefit. It is worth money, and once again, there hasn't been an advisory opinion asked for that I know of regarding this, because I believe it is unethical by our own ethics law that states that council people cannot vote on things that are a benefit to their immediate family, nor that are adverse to the town. And our own comptroller, Kevin Conroy, said that this could be adverse to the town. I have a question. Are all personnel transfers posted on the resolutions? If someone is transferred from one department to the other, that must show?
Yes.
It must show?
Is that correct? Yes.
Okay. And if it did show up, would that transfer be illegal and have to be done over again?
Well, if the town board didn't have it in front of them, that would be illegal because they wouldn't have voted on it. But if there was some kind of clerical error that prevented it from getting on the website, that would not make it illegal.
How would we ever know the difference?
Somebody would have to point out the error.
Yeah. I just want to make it clear because it's said that some people didn't get raises every year at I think the January 23rd hearing. The fact of the matter is all the exempt employees that I've looked at, for every year they've been employed with the town, have gotten an increase. I don't know, maybe there is one, but I don't know of any exempt employee who hasn't got a raise, whether it's a minimum of $500 or usually a few $1,000s. So, and
Mr. Salmon, could you come up and speak to some of these issues?
I don't have any questions, so what would you like to say?
Good evening, Supervisor, members of the board. The CBA contains a list of titles referenced as Schedule A. People in the titles identified on Schedule A are exempt from any contractual increases. They require an affirmative action by the board to give them a raise. They are not automatically granted the raise pursuant to the CBA.
Well, I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying that the exempt employees that have been on this calendar that receive raises on the January 3rd meeting, and at virtually every meeting, because I've been printing out their salary history, nobody has ever missed a raise. And I bring it up only because Councilwoman Sweeney brought it up to Newsday in a video that these people have not received raises, and that's just not true. Every one of them on the list from today, from the February 6th meeting, January 23rd, and so on going back, they all get raises every year. They never skip. There's never been one miss, and that was my point, that it's a misnomer to think that we're just giving some person who's missed raises for many years and giving them a raise. They never miss.
Mr. Salmon, are we
contractual or not is another thing.
That's what I was going to ask. So some of the raises I think that Councilwoman King Sweeney was referencing would have been merit raises, not contractual raises. Obviously, we have the contractual raises are what they are.
And those raises were raises within the majority board, and it's in their budget, so it was a matter of their discretion on who they could give raises to.
I get that, I just want to make sure the public understands that nobody's being shortchanged any raises. Everybody is getting a raise every year, whether it's contractual or not. I mean, they're getting, all the exempt employees are getting raises every year. On that
You
issue.
have to provide the board with a list of exempt employees who have not gotten raises.
That's fine, there might be a few, I'm not saying there is absolutely none, but on that issue, that the fact that we giving these raises almost automatically, I did some surveys, it takes too long to go through everything, but I compared other municipalities. North Hempstead is not a million miles away from us, and the salaries for exactly the same positions are 30%, 40% less on average. And, you know, it's just absolutely absurd, the number from your office, the supervisor's office, I compare it to Judy Bogworth, even if you account for the size of the town, as if that should make a difference in salary. You work 8 hours a day, regardless of how big the town is, you have more employees because you service more people, but the salaries are just so out of whack. The animal shelter, we just go on and on. I looked up.
Mr. Prakash, can I just ask you, and I'm trying to understand this myself. Mr. Santa, correct me if I'm wrong. The members, our staff, members of CSEA who work on the town board, do they receive contractual raises each year? They do not. So, what I'm just asking, so what you're saying is everyone that was on the calendar for the town board received a raise last year?
Everyone who's on the calendar on January 23rd received the raise for every year they've been employed with the town.
Okay.
I went through everyone. There could be an error in C2 New York, but everyone I've gone through has been there. And like I said, the salaries.
I see staff members shaking their heads, so I don't know.
Did I say that?
No, I'm just trying to understand it myself. That's all.
Everyone I've checked has an increase. That's what I qualify it. I'm not saying I can know something I never checked.
Just trying to understand,
I think we should do a salary survey on every increase, whether it's today's increase, any increase, that we look at other comparable positions and see, are we paying a fair salary? Are we paying 30, 40% more than other municipalities? And why is that? We're a bigger municipality, but everybody works an 8-hour day, so it's, what difference does it make? Anyway, that's my point. Thank you so much.
If I could just interject, the salary schedule is a product of successive collective bargaining negotiations with the union. And that's, the salary schedules are a result of those negotiations, and any change to the salary schedule would have to be negotiated with the union.
No, absolutely. You don't have to keep on raising non-contractual salaries if they're out of the whack of what the norm is. That's what I'm saying.
Valerie Lamb.
Valerie Lamb, Bolton, New York. So it's National Love Your Pet Day, so we're going to talk about the animals. On the resolution, let's start with this one. The resolution number 35, with regards to payment services and to make payments to the animal shelter, Town Hempstead Animal Shelter, to the Central Veterinary Associates. Can someone tell me, why is that dated April 4th of last year?
Mr. Conroy, can you please answer that?
I was hoping that. Thank you. That's my time.
Supervisor, members of the board, I can speak to the dollars associated with this resolution. I'm not quite sure what your question was.
So I guess I'm curious as to why we would be authorizing payments for something that was dated April 4th, 2017. Is this an old bill that was never paid?
What this is, this resolution is increasing the funding in 2018 by $135,000, so as to increase it from the original amount, which was $48,000. So the new amount would be $183,000. We encumbered those monies, and that's what we are anticipating paying in the budget year 2018 on behalf of these services rendered by this off-site vet service.
Hold on, let me table that question. But so with regards to this off-site veterinary service, as well as the next one, which is Porter Animal.
Yes.
Okay.
What about service?
That's another one that was originally dated August 8th, 2017, with a range of $30,000 to $85,000. What are we paying for? What are we outsourcing?
Off-site vet services.
Okay, but from my understanding, we have an animal shelter with a $3 million payroll, and that includes veterinarian staff, correct?
Both in-house, and this is for outsourcing.
Okay.
For I believe cases that they can't handle in-house, they need to outsource.
How did we go about selecting these particular vendors, for lack of a better term?
I believe the town attorney may be able to help me. I believe it's a professional service that did not require a bid. If you can help me on that. Yeah.
That is correct. We hired on recommendation from the director of the shelter and the commissioner of general services.
And the dates on the resolutions, are the dates that they originally went for, is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
So,
in 2017.
Correct,
So Porter Vet Services, for example, was hired without any type of bidding process through the recommendation of the current director of the shelter, Mike Pastori? Mr. Buck?
I believe so. It's veterinary services, they're professional services, and they do not need to go through a bidding process.
Okay, well, considering this is not a small amount of money, but even if it is, it's really always about principle. I mean, maybe we should have some type of a bidding process, because how does the public know that their taxpayer dollars are hiring the best people? I did a preliminary search, Mr. Ra, and I found Porter Veterinary Services, which is the DBA for this company. Number one, they don't even have a website. I mean, that's surprising in today's day and age. But according to what I did find, which was from a data research company, their annual revenue is $66,471, and they've only been in business for less than 2 years. Is this the best place to outsource our beloved animals to? I also want to point out that New York Veterinary Specialty and Emergency Center, their DBA, Porter Services DBA, has 28 reviews on Google with only a 2.7 star rating, which to me is subpar, to say the least. But if you read the reviews, I mean, I find it very alarming. It is complaining about everything from staff being rude, more importantly, to negligence, incompetence, and even a dog being operated on the wrong leg. So I'm concerned, and the next item down on the menu here is the resolution authorizing acceptance of contract for yearly requirements to this Animal Specialty Labs, DBA Bloodhound Laboratories. I don't have anything against them. However, what I'm curious to know is, was this a bidding process to select this type of company that's going to be handling these jobs?
Once again, these are professional services and no bid is required.
So no bids required for this either. One of the things I noticed on this resolution is that it also says that there is a fee schedule attached. I could not locate the fee schedule, so I would actually like to ask the supervisor and the board to table this vote until we can ascertain if these are the best people for the job. I think that especially since, as Supervisor Gillen says, that the animal shelter is a lightning rod of controversy, is it now a good time to hit the pause button and make sure we're making the best possible decisions on behalf of our animals?
Is some of this for services, is some of this requesting funds for services that have already been rendered, is that correct?
This is a future 3-year contract with regard.
If I can, I want to speak on number 37. This did actually go out for bid, and this is the lab doing business as Bloodhound. This is a rebid. If the original 4 bids went out, none came back. On this one, 2 bids went out and 1 came back. So we have exhausted the bid process with regard to the lab itself. The other 2, as the town attorney points out, professional services, no bid required.
So can we put a pin in this or table it, as Councilman Diaz-Bazito likes to say? Because I really feel that this is, the timing of this and the magnitude of the importance of this, both in dollar amount and the fact that we are all concerned about the decision-making process for the town of Hempstead animals. Can we pause this? Mr. Rock, can we pause it? Does it have to be voted on tonight?
Are you talking about, which item are you talking about?
I'm talking about all of the resolutions that fall under 21646, with the exception of, I guess, the Tales of Love, waiving the adoption fee, because that already happened anyway in the past, so that's kind of irrelevant. But these, I'm talking about the payments to these 2 shelters, one of which has horrible reviews, etc. I mean, I'll show you the work, but I think I'm being reasonable. I'm not saying don't pay anybody. I'm saying, can we hit the pause button and do a little more due diligence?
Supervisor, if I may, if I can comment on 35 and 36. 35 and 36, all we're doing is increasing the encumbrance in an anticipated expenditure in 2018. That's all we're doing. We're not authorizing a payment here.
Well, with all due respect, though, what I'm trying to say is the town in general, we have a history, and Supervisor Gillen spoke to it during her campaign, about patronage jobs and picking people just for the sake of picking them because they're friends with whoever and isn't it time we end this? No more cherry picking just because so-and-so says that they like them.
We are discussing putting out an RFP for outside veterinary services to seek new providers.
Thank you.
Nancy Giris?
Good evening, Nancy Giris, 513 North Atlanta Avenue, North Massapequa. I'm the adoption coordinator at the Town of Hempstead Animal Shelter. And I want to make it very clear that on Resolution 35 and 36, owing money is not without penalty for the well-being and the very life of our dogs and cats. We've had animals turned away from emergency services that have been laying near death on the side of the road that our animal control officers have went out and got. They've been turned away from the closest emergency vet because we owe them too much money. And they wind up being sent 25 minutes or an hour later to the next vet that will take us because we're in arrears, it's my understanding, somewhere in the 6 figures. So this is life and death, and this isn't, if we don't pay the bill, we don't get blue pens tomorrow, or we don't get copy paper. This is having an impact on the services, critical care services. We don't have a vet or vet staff at the shelter 24 hours a day. Many of our animals are coming in critical care, animals being hit on the side of the road, cruelty cases, orthopedic surgeries. We've had animals that we have transported to specialty surgeries that we've been told to come pick them up. We're not doing the surgery. We owe you too much money. So this is not without ramifications. And this is the gift that Anthony Santino just keeps on giving. Because these bills were due months and months and months ago. And he handed the stack of bills to Supervisor Gillen, at the very detriment of the well-being of our animals and their health and their very, very life at stake. To be in that shelter and know that there is an animal, listening to that animal control call come in every day and listening, saying, you have to bypass the vet in Valley Stream, we owe them too much money, even though it's 2 minutes away, and the ACO gets stuck in traffic for an hour trying to take them to another facility. It's horrible, it's despicable, and it's disgraceful. And I want everyone to keep this in mind when Anthony Santino rises again, that this is just another gift he left all of us. And that this is an issue that this is not just extending budgets. This is paying overdue bills in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. I want people to recognize the gravity of this. And when you get those calls in the shelter knowing that animals probably going to die because it didn't get services quickly enough. It's a disgrace.
So to be clear, if we do not support this, it's putting animals at risk. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying to you is that we ultimately need to provide services because there are not critical care services, there are not specialty services, and we don't always have veterinary staff available, even during our public work hours. What I'm saying is that it's horrific that we owed and that we held money out. Held money out. We're handing out jobs, $160,000 at the drop of a hat to people. But yet we could get into debt for over 6 figures, knowingly, for almost 6 or 7 months, and put every single one of those animals' lives at risk. And the look on the ACO's face when they come out and say the dog or the cat died because I couldn't go 5 minutes away and I had to travel for an hour is heartbreaking. We should never, ever be in this position again. Ever. This is money that needs to be paid. This is contracts that have to be maintained, and I absolutely agree these need to be sent out to an RFP. These can't be, this is someone I know, a guy I know. We need to get the best services for our best value and the best money available. Thank you.
Supervisor, if I may, can I just ask the controller a couple of questions? Just so I can understand this. What we're voting on is not money owed, correct?
That is correct.
It does say payment.
No, it says funding. What we're doing is the budget, if I may. The budget in 2018, the health line was, or is, $350,000. Off-site vets, $330,000. The remainder is for labs of $20,000. Total $350,000. What 35 and 36 is trying to accomplish here is to set aside funding from the budget. We call that in the accounting world an encumbrance, so as to be in position to provide the service and make the payments timely in 18. So these are not arrears payments that are due. This is setting aside funding.
So to be clear, just so everyone and all of us understand, 35 and 36 are not old bills that we owe any money for.
This is setting aside the funding for services to be rendered in 18.
And as far as you're concerned, we are up to date with our payments to these 2 vendors?
As far as I'm concerned, that's news to me, because I would certainly be getting phone calls.
Well, then I'm here to give you the news. Because the news is we are in arrears. And these are not the
If you would,
These are.
if you could call me tomorrow, provide me with a schedule of those arrears, and I will make sure that they get paid timely, because it's absolutely news to me.
There's two resolutions here, so which company are we in the arrears for?
All of the emergency vets, we've been turned away from central vet, we've been turned away from other specialty vets, and even orthopedic vets. I could give you the specifics if you really like them. I don't know at this moment, but clearly these are issues that.
I don't need the specifics, I'm just trying to understand. You're saying that we're not getting services because we haven't paid the bills.
That's
The
correct.
controller is saying that we have paid the bills. The resolutions that are on the calendar have nothing to do with paying bills.
It does say
Mr. Marino, do you know?
But that's not the case.
Excuse me. Commissioner Marino, do you know if we are in arrears with any of our outside vets?
Yes, we are in business.
Thank you.
2017 one. That won't come out to this money that's lower, that's why the controls.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
So we owe from 2017.
We need to finish paying the 2017, but that has to come out of 2017 one.
So, Mr. Conroy, this is just setting aside money to make sure that we don't get into this trouble in 2018, is that correct?
That's all it is, Supervisor.
And was it budgeted properly in the 2018 budget, or do we need more money?
Well, as we speak right now, $330,000 is for the health line for off-site veterinarians.
And is that going to be sufficient in our past experience?
I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you we have set aside 283 of the 330,000. So we've got about $60,000 to go. And it all depends upon the occurrence rate, the cases, the caseload, and the like. So I'm not in a position to comment as to whether or not.
Mr. Conlon, what's the average, not just in this matter, what's the average time for accounts payable from the time that the invoice is received, processed, and paid? For the typical transaction?
By the time it gets to the controller's office, after all the voucher package, we call it, is complete with the invoice, the claim forms, the authorization, and all that, it's a 2-week turnaround.
So we pay our bills within 30 days typically?
Within 2 weeks, yeah.
Okay, and are we paying these bills within 30 days?
Because of this year, enough money wasn't encumbered to pay all of these bills. So that's why we recently, but the vets we were able to bring the animals to both vets. They were still taking the vets from both locations.
What's the current status of paying these arrears so we can get
We're in
current?
the process right now of putting a resolution to pay. We have to use 2017 money.
Okay.
So the fact of the matter is, Councilman D'Esposito, we owe money to the vets.
Okay.
We owe money, and we're being denied services.
I wasn't arguing that. I was simply trying to get the facts, and I was simply pointing out that these resolutions are not, so that's what we're discussing in the administrative calendar. We're discussing the resolutions that are at hand. So that's what I was referring to.
Did you turn this on? It does say payment of.
Okay, but I just wanted to make it clear that it wasn't the money that we're paying in arrears, and now we've come to the understanding that we have to pay that money. So the conversation worked.
Because our animals are dying because of it. So we can dance and play.
Let's try to keep this So, encumbering this money, it seems like is a good idea to make sure that at least our vets, even if we are going to go out for an RFP, right now to make sure that we have this money in place to pay our vets is a good idea for the safety of and well-being of our animals.
Right, and there should be an RFP.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to make a statement. I'd like to say that if that's true about those veterinarians,
yes,
I think it's disgraceful. We are creditworthy, we pay our bills, and the town of Hempstead has a very good financial rating compared to most municipalities. And the fact that a provider of health care services to an animal who is in that profession would deny service to the town of Hempstead, I think, is disgraceful if what you're telling me is true.
And a good reason to do an RFP.
And a good reason to do an RFP. And a good reason to do an RFP and not just pick somebody's friend, neighbor, or coworker. I agree with the supervisor. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next we have Mary Ellen Craig.
The resolution states vendors, how could you make it for somebody else?
Thank you, Mary Ellen Craig, 436 Locust Avenue in Uniondale. And my questions relate to the vet. How do we pay the vet at the animal shelter? Does it get paid by the, does she get paid by the hour? You know, is it an annual salary?
Mr. Marino? Commissioner Marino?
Thank you, Supervisor Boardman, Ms. Craig. Dr. Siegel is an employee of the town of Hempstead. I don't have it exactly, he makes it proper. Can we say his salary? He has his
annual salary.
Excuse me?
That was my next question.
He makes an annual salary.
100,000.
I don't know what his salary is offhand.
Make a lot of money.
103,000.
100, I didn't know exactly.
Thank you. And what kind of work schedule does Dr. Siegel have?
He works 40 hours a week.
He works 40 hours a week, and is he usually there from a specific time to a specific time?
Yes, he is. He comes in, I think he works a little on the earlier side. He'll work 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. He starts earlier in the morning.
So
He'll actually stay later if we need.
So he kind of picks his own hours.
No, he doesn't. He starts about 7 o'clock. I just don't know off the top of my head what time he starts.
I'm told his hours are 6 a.m. to 2 p.m.
He starts early because before it gets busy, he'll do certain surgeries in the TNR program. So
And he does overtime, right? Overtime?
very limited. I don't
He
think
gets
any.
paid for overtime. He doesn't want another bed there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Rory Gordon.
Rory Gordon, Hop New York. First, Councilwoman Sweeney, I'd like to apologize to you. I travel from Suffolk County, and generally I was the first 20 minutes of the meeting, and I went back and I looked at videos on Just the Facts Media, and you are correct. The tax receiver, Don Clavin, he is here, but he's usually gone by the time I get here. That's why I stated what I stated, and I do apologize. He cuts out usually between, because I watched every video that I could, he cuts out between 6 minutes and 20, and he goes right out that door, and I usually get here about 20 minutes after. And I'm not really sure why he leaves. Anyway, I have a question on number, I think it's number 39. It's in reference to the Golf Pro Shop.
Yes, what's your question?
Okay. It says here, all of the Golf Pro personnel must be uniformed in suitable work clothes of good appearance, courteous behavior by the Golf Pro, and all its personnel to the public will be required at all times. The Golf Pro will take necessary action to discipline or terminate employees whose behavior is found to be unacceptable to the Commissioner. What I found interesting about this is the demands that are being made on the Golf Pro Shop, and I spend a tremendous amount of time in the building department. They used to look really spiffy. I have no idea what's happened in the last year. They don't wear uniforms anymore. And I'm bringing it up because I read this document, and I thought now would be a good time to bring it up. They represent the town of Hempstead, and they...
I will tell you that the Commissioner has asked to get new uniforms for the building department, so it's an issue that's under consideration.
But what happened to the old ones? They wore them for years.
Commissioner Rodkamp? I'll get back to you, Ms. Gordon, on what happened to the old uniforms.
Oh, Commissioner Rodkamp's not here?
See,
He's right here.
Oh, there it is. Sorry, Commissioner, please.
I like your hair.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good evening, Supervisor, members of the town board. As you stated, I did request that the uniform allowance be put back into the building department so that the employees can get new uniforms and wear the uniforms that are assigned to them.
When did we take out the uniform allowance?
I believe it was taken out a year and a half ago,
And why was that?
funding reasons.
So you found it necessary to cut that, so when somebody goes to someone's house to do an inspection and they don't know who it is knocking on the door because the guy shows up in plain clothes, that doesn't make any sense to me.
I didn't make that recommendation.
And who did? You're the commissioner at the building department.
And my recommendation was to reinstall it, and I had a meeting with the supervisor and stated that.
That is indeed true.
True that you made the recommendation, but we don't know who made the recommendation to take it away? That's what I'm asking.
I wasn't here, so I can't answer that.
I know, that's why I'm asking Commissioner Rodkamp.
It was removed from my budget.
And you, as the commissioner, didn't step up to the plate and say, hey, Supervisor Santino, we really need this because these fellas, they've got their lives on the line. They could be going up to a door and somebody taking a shot at them and they don't know if they're a building inspector or a code enforcement officer. I don't know, to me, it might sound silly, but it stands to reason that they should be in uniform.
All right, Ms. Gordon, thank you. Mr. Rodkamp did make the recommendation, and he said his recommendation was denied, so.
Okay, thank you. And I have a question on this person. I don't know how you say his name. Nicholas, Arcuri.
okay, it's relevant, but story yard crew chief in the Department of General Services Traffic Control Division is hereby appointed to now building maintenance supervisor. Is he filling a new position?
Mr. Simon, can you answer this question?
This appointment comes off of a civil service list, departmental recommendation. I think there may be a number of departments that utilize this.
Can you talk into that mic, because we can never hear you on the tape when we go home and listen to it again?
This was a departmental recommendation. Building maintenance supervisors, exactly as it describes, maintains the building that traffic control is housed in. Whether or not they had somebody in this title performing these services or in another title previously, I can't speak to that right now, but certainly building maintenance is part of every facility.
And this was a recommendation by which commissioner?
Commissioner Marino.
Commissioner Marino, can you just speak to this?
Thank you, Supervisor, board members. Nick O'Carey, we don't have a building manager. It's at 1580 Merrick Avenue. It's where we have our street lighting and traffic control. It's been done by committee in the past. He was on the civil service list. We made a recommendation to ask that we have a building supervisor one.
Was there a test for this position?
Yes, it's a civil service test. It came off of the state civil service test.
So, do I understand correctly, now we have to fill his position?
No, we have no intention of filling his position. Filling the position that was empty, Chief?
Yes.
We have no intention of doing that.
And is Mr. Arcuri the high scorer on that test?
I think he's either one or two, but the first person is gone off it, or ineligible, I believe. I'm not positive on that. But he's somebody that works there. It was in the best interest of the town of Hempstead to use him. He's qualified in that building, he's qualified for the job.
I don't understand that position has never been, and now they made the position because you feel now after 100 years of this town being here that you need that position filled?
Every building in the town of Hempstead, especially a large facility like 1580 Merrick Avenue, should have a building maintenance supervisor. We just didn't have the personnel for it. So we're actually taking someone that works on the road and bring them in the building to make sure that the building is kept safe and proper as the buildings get older.
What's at 1580 Merrick Avenue?
That's where traffic control and street lighting is, on the second floor, I believe sanitation, and the union has offices up there.
So we created this job for this man, and all of these years, this position was good without him. I just want to make sure I understand that correctly. They were managing all along, and now we just gave him this job for $100,000, and we're not replacing whatever he did before. So when I see this story yard crew job getting an appointment from somebody else, you follow where I'm going with this.
Right, and your premise, I don't think is correct, because I have no intention of making a recommendation to put another store yard crew chief there. I think that the personnel requires that we have 3 or 4 crews to go out and do street lights, and I think 3 crews to do traffic control, putting up the stop signs and stuff. And I think this allowed us the ability to have a building manager that's able to work in the building.
So what you're saying is he had a job that wasn't really necessary to begin with, is that true?
No, actually, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we're using them in a better ability for the town and residents of the town of Hempstead.
So his job's not being filled, so we didn't need him. That's the only point I'm trying to make. These 100,000 here, 150,000 there, 200,000 here. My God, it's out of control. You give away jobs here like it's nothing.
We actually aren't giving him a job. He had a job with the town, so I think the raise is minimal. I don't really know off the top of my head, but
it's not the point of the raise at all.
Are we giving him a proper title that suits the work that he's doing?
yes, you have to. We're trying to, everybody should work in their title. So since we didn't have a building manager, he was doing some of that work when he wasn't on the road. So this was improper. It was in our best interest to have him in the building, to be the building maintenance supervisor.
I do have another question. Is this the type of job that could have been advertised on the website, or was it advertised on the website?
Or this person just gets it because of the luck of the draw?
It's a tested position that we filled within our own staff.
Okay, but
It wasn't,
Civil service routinely makes the community aware of all civil service exams that are being given and what the qualifications are to take the test, and this was so advertised.
it was on the website?
absolutely, yes.
Okay, and when was it on the website, just so I know?
It maybe got, maybe a year or so.
A year or two ago?
Yes, most probably, this, as I recall, is not a new list. The exam was given probably 6 to 8 months ago. It would have been advertised around that time.
Okay, so it's not clear to me if it was on the website or not, but I will let you know that we are revitalizing our website right now, and positions that are available will be posted on the website going forward once we revamp our website, which takes a considerable amount of work.
I hope soon. Thank you.
Mr. Salmon, would you mind just making just a general statement about civil service employees in general and the way that testing works? And we want to encourage our great CSEA employees to take tests. And they are getting themselves more educated, they're taking higher tests. This is a good thing, and they should be rewarded for doing so, particularly if they're scoring high. Can you comment on that?
Absolutely. That's an important part of the civil service concept, is to encourage current employees to gain additional experience, additional credentials, qualify to take exams for higher titles, upward mobility. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and I'm going to ask you another question. Only 2 people were put into this qualification? Nobody else applied?
I don't understand your statement.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 people were...
I think you're referencing the number of people who took the test. Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah.
I think far more than 2 people took the exam.
He said
I have
2.
it in front of me, but generally, the list usually, I guess 10 to 12 people may have been on that particular list.
Thank you.
I don't have it in front of me, but generally, yes, there are multiple people on the list.
All right, Ms. Gordon, I'm sorry, your time is up.
The department has the right to choose from the top 3.
Okay, can I foil it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because even if you score high, like I did in the county, they could pick who they want.
Okay, next we have Diane Madden.
His father's a big league.
I know.
He's making $100 million.
Diane Madden, Hempstead, New York. It's really hard to listen to all of this. Nick Acuri's father, Dominic Acuri, was the building maintenance manager of the shelter, and Newsday described him as one of the fat cats who left and resigned after everything was exposed with the audit. Nick was supposed to take his position, and I'm sure there's a lot of things going on here to secure Nick, and if I understand this correctly, his position, even that department, is not even needed. What have they been doing so from this point in the past without this position? It seems like the Republican Party is alive and well and getting away with still wasting our money. And at some point, Supervisor, you can't vote these raises. You just got finished saying that there's going to be a new website. Well, why not table all of these raises until it can be established if they are entitled to this kind of money?
Mr. Salmon, I believe that this raise comes with the title, is that correct?
I know a lot of hardworking employees at this moment that keep this town running that are not getting promotions, they're not getting raises. You had Ben Minter with the animal shelter. What, maybe he's not the president of a Republican club? I mean, you met with them, correct? Councilwoman Sweeney? Mr. Mento, remember him?
I met Mr. Menzel, but I'm not going to comment on meetings that I've had with employees.
No, I'm not expecting you to. I just find it interesting that you're having all of these meetings and nothing is really changing and nothing's happening, and yet all of these heads of these Republican parties are sailing through and getting all of these promotions on our backs.
It's unbelievable.
Well, can I say something? I don't think I know who Mr. Arcuri is. I don't think I'd know him if I fell over. I don't know if he's a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, or a Martian.
He's a Republican.
I don't know what I'm talking about, maybe he's not in your club.
I really don't know what you're talking about.
Well, okay, so
It was
this
a
is
test, Diane, it was a tested position. This gentleman scored number 2 on the test.
As a 2.
Number 1 is no longer ineligible. If the department took number 11, I would be right there fighting with you. But it's a tested position. The person who got the highest score got the job. What's the beef?
So what I want to know then, because there are people at the animal shelter on tested positions, there are also people in the highway department on tested positions, they are next in line and they are not getting called.
Okay, on those, you should bring that to our attention, but in this case, it sounds like they did everything right.
Well, I will bring that to your attention, and this isn't right, because if this is a position that's not necessary in this department, then it's not right.
That's the truth.
You know, that's a policy decision that's made.
Of course.
And the reality is that, have you heard? And the reality is that when a commissioner makes a recommendation, we, all of us on the board, consider that recommendation. And in this case, if something happened at that building that destroyed property or was dangerous to someone's life because there wasn't a full-time superintendent or manager on the property, then people would be coming up and criticizing us for that. This was a tested position. The commissioner felt that this vacancy was necessary. And quite frankly, none of us up here are going to micromanage. If we find out a commissioner did something wrong or lied to us, that's a different story. But so far, what we have to do is take recommendations, weigh them, and if they sound legitimate, we have to grant it. We can't micromanage everybody.
Well, I suggest you do during this period of time, because it's our money that you're micromanaging, and that's what you should be doing. I'd like to talk about item 35. What I'd like to know is, everyone acts so surprised about these overdue bills at the animal shelter, which I've been informed since last June, and the stack of them were never paid for last year, and they were a little welcome gift for you, Supervisor. Who did know about these bills? Legal department? Joe Ra? Who knew? Was your liaison at the animal shelter advised that there were invoices that were unpaid? Who knew?
I assume that the people at the animal shelter knew that the bills were not paid, and it was an issue that happened in 2017, and I just really became aware of it.
Okay, so I understand that's called mismanagement, misconduct, incompetence, and that is what you're allowed to do. You're allowed to remove these people for these issues.
I can't speak to, I'll have to look into why the bills were not paid. I don't know why they weren't paid, and I don't know if it was a budgeting issue. And if it is a budgeting issue, then that's something that would have been fall on the hands of the person who made that budget and didn't budget correctly.
Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're saying, may not have been budgeted correctly?
It's certainly possible.
So you don't find it a little alarming that the animal shelter director, the first day you were on board here, didn't make you aware that animals are being denied medical care because their bills aren't being paid?
He's silent.
Are you aware that animals are not being denied medical care?
Come on up, because we're ready to protest. You need to remove him. This girl's an animal.
And Supervisor, no, I'm not aware that animals are not being treated. They are being treated. Last year's budget was too low. That's why you could see in that resolution that it was raised. That's the reason it was raised.
No, the bills were not paid. The bills were not being paid.
The bills weren't being paid because the resolution only allows you to pay so much.
But you know that. It happened last year.
When I found out what the bills were, at this point, we're going to make payment on the bills.
Where these bills are going to be paid, where there's a...
I'm not worried about the bills. I would hope with $4 million you can pay the bills. Why do we no longer have bids out for veterinary service? For years when I was there doing rescue, bids always went out. Mr. Ryan, you just said this was a recommendation for this vet, who, by the way, has poor ratings by the director. And Councilwoman Sweeney, you have an issue with an audit? You put out a public statement upset about an audit?
I can't believe that.
Okay, so I think we can speak nicely and have a pleasant conversation about this. The reason I had a disagreement over the handling of the audit was because what was asked of the Nassau County Controller, not to my knowledge, was to conduct a full audit, including a performance audit, and that is not permitted. And I will defer to Joe Roth to explain the details of that court decision. That was my issue, and the fact that the town board was not involved at all with this decision making, that was my issue.
So the council and I disagree on that. We disagree on the interpretation of the holding of the case. I also disagree and take issue with the fact that they were not involved, because I told people that I was going to do an audit, but that ship has sailed, so let's just move on.
But no, wait, actually, just for clarification purposes, it was told to members of the town board the day before, and we were not fully briefed on it at all. That is a fact. And so I had a disagreement bringing in the Nassau County Controller when our own controller had not been involved at all.
He sucks.
I have not seen the need for the Nassau County Controller to come in without first involving. Controller, were you involved at all with this? Were you asked to review any of these numbers to conduct an audit?
Have you ever read the New York State audit, Aaron? Did you read that one? Wouldn't that indicate that maybe we should have an outside opinion on that animal shelter?
I'm all about proper process and in bringing people along in issues dealing with the animal shelter. I'm asking the controller, had you at all been asked to conduct any sort of audit within the last several weeks?
No, I haven't.
And the thought was that it's best to ensure that the public can take relief that we are conducting an audit with outside people, so they can feel that it's not an inside review, that it's an outside review. It's something that I think should be correctly put. And at the next town board meeting, we will have my resolution, which was tabled, to have outside investigators investigate inside matters within our own town attorney's office. That will be back on the calendar at the next meeting, and I encourage you all to attend.
It's not clear to me what allegations you're making against town attorneys, why you would need an investigator. But let's go back.
I'm not making any allegations. It's actually on the recommendation of our town attorney, who said we need outside investigators. So please be sure that you attend our next town board meeting to listen to that.
Defer to Joe Roth. Can you please clarify that about the need for outside investigators? Because I think your words are being misinterpreted.
Do I have a written memo from you, Mr. Roth?
Yes, we do, Supervisor.
Thank you.
And
All right.
I don't have it in front of me, but I believe what I said was that an outside investigator is desirous to hire a firm for certain limited purposes when surveillance is necessary, and just on certain limited purposes, not for the everyday run-of-the-mill things that we investigate. But yes, an outside investigator would be useful.
Right, and I helped you draft that, and I was in full agreement with that memo, but I think you need to have the full context of what was written in the memo and why that memo was written.
So I encourage you to look for that at our next town board meeting. Are there any other matters that you wish to address?
Yes, I didn't get an answer. Was your liaison advised of these invoices?
Ms. Sinclair, were you advised of outstanding invoices?
Yes, when I was made aware of the town board resolution, we were made that there was outstanding payments.
When was
And that
this?
these resolutions were coming to.
We can't hear when the-
In the budget, as well as deal with past due bills.
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you, you gotta come up to the microphone.
Neither can the people watching.
That's correct, I know that.
Zero.
When I was made aware, I'm sorry,
Could you please say when you were made aware?
I think a week or so ago, I was told that there were town board resolutions coming our way that were extremely important because they were related to sheltering, care, veterinary care, and that we had to pass them with extra budget room for future services, but we also had bills that were due.
So all this time has passed since the 1st of January, and about a week ago, your liaison was advised about that.
But they're past due bills.
Let that sink in. Past due bills where the animals have been denied medical.
Were you advised that animals are being denied medical care, Ms. Sinclair?
No, I was not.
Okay, so how do we catch you up on that? Because animals have been denied medical care. And I think you need to rethink where you're getting the information from at the animal shelter.
Talk into the microphone.
And I didn't get an answer about the bids. How come these
Ms. Madden, I'm sorry, your time is up.
I didn't get an answer. No one has answered me, and the clock was running. How come these vets are not going out for bid? And is it for sure that RFPs are going out? For sure, or is this a discussion?
We have a number we're preparing an RFQ right now, which I'm circulating to the town board for their review, and we're looking at what we need to do in terms of RFPs for the animal shelter, and we'll update you forward. I mean, I have a list of all the things that we've done at the animal, with respect to the animal shelter, if you want to go through it with me after the meeting.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Steele, Katrina?
Lucille Fina, Newark, New York. One thing that just, if you don't get a liaison that actually knows about animal care, then I don't know what you're doing up there, because that is your first and biggest mistake.
I can tell you that Ms. Sinclair has devoted so much time looking into the animal shelter, and she's investigated every single complaint that has come our way by email, by text, by carrier pigeon. Every single complaint that comes forward, Ms. Sinclair has worked together with the people at the animal shelter to investigate it.
Well, then how come we knew that the animals weren't getting vet care? How come we know that the staff and the ACOs are screaming because animals are dying, because vet bills aren't paid? We're talking about 3/4 of the year of 2017. And now you're telling me she didn't recognize that, so somebody had to tell her a week ago? We've been screaming.
She wasn't here in 2017, Katrina.
What I'm saying, and you could play dumb on this, but anyone who knows what they're doing and has any experience in animal sheltering would have been able to tell me this immediately, okay? And we told you immediately. We told you through your campaign, and we were trying to be patient and not come up here and say all the things we need to tell you in the last few weeks. We thought your administration would figure it out. So I guess we're all figuring it out together, but we knew. And the other thing I think I need to remind everybody is why the reason your vet bills have gone through the roof is because it was me who was up here all through 2016 screaming about all the cats that were dying in cages. And everyone who's just ignoring them, and how Dr. Siegel does not really care about cats. You could go back and look at every single town board meeting all through 2015 and 2016. And I even had the numbers from FOIL documents. Cats were dying horrible, slow deaths. ACOs were picking cats up and calling Dr. Siegel saying, the cat's very sick, injured. Oh, just leave them in my office, I'll be there in the morning. And the cat was found dead. This was a common day occurrence. This is what went on all the time. And let me finish, because when I screamed about it up here at this mic, that's when Dr. Siegel and Mr. Pastore probably figured, we better get a little vet care for some of these cats to help our numbers. So thank you for finally giving us vet care without telling the town that now you have bills that you have to pay for. Because there's no way Dr. Siegel, who leaves at 12:30, 1 o'clock every day, your shelter is open from 9 to 5 or sometimes to 7. He's supposed to be there. An in-house veterinarian should be there when the shelter's open. That's when your animals come in. sick and injured, and afterwards in the evening, you need emergency vet care, and that's what the extra money should be going for. But instead, we have neither. We have nothing. We have a vet that comes in at 6 and 7 o'clock. Guess why? Because there's nothing to do. There is nothing going on. And he leaves by 12:30, 1 o'clock, which doesn't matter because he doesn't do anything but exams anyway. Dr. Singh is in a van doing spay-neuter all day long, and Dr. Siegel is walking around doing examinations. That is not vet care. So you always needed vet care. You always needed this kind of a budget. You always needed all these outside vets. Now the difference is you need good vets. You need the vets that you used to have 2 or 3 years ago. What happened to Island Trees? What happened to Hilton? You want to know what happened to them? Dr. Siegel and Pastore didn't want them. They blacklisted half of them because those vets were complaining about the negligence and the condition that the animals were in. So you have a vet and a director who is roadblocking good veterinarians and people who want to do the job right for good prices. Instead, you know what you're going to get? You're going to get the worst quality, incompetent vet care at the highest prices because that's what Dr. Siegel and your director Pastore does. So is this all making a little more sense now? Why your vet bills have gone up through the roof? Because they're finally giving the cats vet care. Finally. And don't take it away from them. Make sure you don't take it away from them, but get them good vets. And then every day, that director and that vet stays there. You better know what's going on. And you better get a liaison in there that knows what to look for.
I do not have any more slips on the administrative calendar. Is there anybody else who would like to be heard on any of the items in the administrative calendar?
Rita Meriday, Baldwin resident, and unfortunately I had to give up my civic meeting tonight because I definitely felt it was important to stay to hear what is going on. It's sad to say, I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse that we have such a underfunded Veterans Services budget that it's almost scary to think what would happen with having additional resources if this is how the animal shelter and the animals are treated with the money. And I just find it amazing. And Supervisor Gillen, to your credit, you weren't here last year when the few of us that were here, and I'm glad that we do have at least a few more night meetings so that those of us who survived 2017 and had to sit here and to hear how people were so in love with that 2017 budget and how it was covering everything. Now all of the stuff is really coming out. The truth is really coming out. And as you can hear the passion involved with those who have been here and have been fighting the good fight with regard to the animal shelter, we can only hope as we're now in the high end of February that changes are going to be made. Quick comment with regard to the cell towers. It's always interesting when government entities and cell phone companies are always the ones to say that there are no findings of health-related issues, but it's such an underfunded process. But we do have a noted scholar from institutions like Harvard and things of that nature who do believe that there are conditions that are subsequent to that. And Mr. Robb, for your personal edification, when you say anything to me as a 9/11 first responder about the federal government giving some assurance about something, let's talk to the 9/11 survivors who are dying on a regular basis because the EPA said, oh, the air quality is fine, the sky is blue. So, needless to say, I give that no credence. But as far as the calendar itself, I've written a few things. 22, 24, 25, 26, 30, and 40. And quickly, with regard to 22, I'm all for initiatives, definitely for youth funding and things of that nature, but do we ever get any reports, benchmarks, success stories, things of that nature that can be used as we move forward? 24, again, has to do with the fact that we are giving out contracts, don't know what the vetting process is, don't know if there's a friend or a relative, still curious as to what happened or what's going to happen with the inspector general. 25 and 26, again, reporting. With this type of work and drainage improvements, what companies are being utilized, we are talking about funding that is not coming just from the township, so there are requirements as it pertains to, once again, veteran-owned businesses, minority and women-owned businesses. Where is that reporting? Where is that outreach? How are we ensuring compliance? Number 30, insurance premiums. Is this a professional service that I believe Mr. Ross said earlier that professional services don't have to go through a bidding process? Anytime anyone makes that kind of statement, particularly in this township, I am extremely nervous. Number 40, the refunding bond resolution. Can someone explain what are the savings, what are the costs? Why wasn't something like this done years before when we had all those great budgets that were passed largely by that Republican majority that just seemed to keep nodding those heads and didn't seem to really have any answers when it was requested by those of us who sat in this room with, I must say, the bad air. It's a wonder why I am always sick when I leave this building, both physically and emotionally. So if anybody can answer those questions, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I'll try to answer a couple of them for you. First of all, I always find your comments very thoughtful. I don't always agree with you. In the case of the cell tower, if we denied self-service to the community of Uniondale, this pavilion wouldn't be able to hold the number of people that would be here demanding that they get good self-service in Uniondale, and that we were denying something that was so important, especially in light of the fact that so many people no longer have landlines in their households, that they completely depend on cell phones for everything from keeping track of their children to emergency situations. So I can't imagine what would happen if we did not try to improve the self-service in every community. So you and I have a fundamental disagreement on that, but that's okay because we're friends and sometimes friends disagree. The other thing is, with respect to the performance of the various groups that we fund and that we're passed through for, typically the way it works is that a recommendation is made by a member of this board on an association or a group in their community, a not-for-profit in their community that has a track record of doing good work, whether it be job training, whether it be after school daycare, whether it be some kind of drug education program or treatment program or counseling program. So they're typically community-based, they're not-for-profit, and they are represented by people in the community. So we do kind of keep track of them. We don't micromanage it, but generally the results are very good, because from what we hear in the community is that the people are very happy with the services that are provided by these community-based not-for-profit organizations.
But is there a report?
You know, there is no report. We don't keep that kind of paperwork, and we don't require them to, because typically they're on a shoestring budget and they don't get a lot of money. It's like $30,000, $40,000 a year, and that money, if we require them to do reports, would just go more for the reports than for the treatment of the kids who may have, you know, an opioid problem or something like that. So, you know, if it was millions of dollars, I agree with you, we should demand a report, but typically we know in the community, each one of us that serve, we know who the good providers are in the community, and by and large, I would say 99% of them are good providers.
Okay, and number 40. As I said, the refund bond resolution.
Yeah, basically the reason for this, and the controller can go into greater detail than I can, or the supervisor, what we tend to all agree is that this is necessary now because, as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, most of the forecasters, economic forecasters that is, not weather forecasters, have indicated that the interest rates may become volatile and move in an upward level. So now we're looking at potentially trying to get ahead of the curve and make sure that we are able to refinance if we find out that the interest rates start to creep.
Yes, basically I put forward this resolution to make sure that our controller has the ability, if market conditions indicate it would be prudent to refinance these series of bonds that are becoming current, that he has the ability to do so, again, if market conditions indicate that that would be result in a savings for the taxpayers.
Okay, I mean, overall, I agree with this. I'm just curious as to why was this recommendation presented by who? Because this should have been something that should have been presented by the controller. And
This was a resolution that I put forward, and then I spoke with the controller about it at some point after that.
okay, one thing I agree with the general consensus that we really do need some strong investigative support services outside to particularly look over how our finances and our treatment of the constituencies who don't have a voice here can be improved, because it's scary out here. And lastly, I'm hoping that we don't take too long to address the growing issues of our veteran community, because they continue to be underserved and underfunded. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not have any more slips on the administrative calendar. Is there anybody else who wants to be heard? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll for items 13 through 48?
Councilman Ambrosino.
Aye on every item except item 48, on which I recuse myself.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Padrón.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
I vote yes on all items, including item number 40, which is the bond resolution. Senior Councilwoman Dorothy Gooseby is not here tonight because she's representing the town of Hempstead at the annual meeting of the Association of Towns in New York City. Councilwoman Gooseby fully supports this refunding bond resolution, and if she were here, she would vote yes. She asked me to share that with you. In addition, I'd like to make a statement regarding item number 40. Despite recent media reports, this refinancing plan is a fiscally prudent move to make sure that we're achieving a maximum bang for our buck on serial bonds. These bonds are used for a wide variety of purposes, including capital projects and improvements throughout our township. By refinancing this amount now, we are ensuring that we're making a good investment for the taxpayers based on current market conditions. The administration's previously proposed bond refinancing plan would have refinanced over $110 million in serial bonds, having different redemption dates extending into 2019. As a result, there would have been no way to accurately predict what market rates will be as far out as that time, which creates significant uncertainty as the impact of such a broad refinancing on Hempstead town taxpayers. Adding to the uncertainty of the administration's refinance plan is the fact that the town controller was not given complete backup data on the plan prior to it being added to the town board's February 6th agenda. After meeting with council members, the controller made the recommendation that the board vote to refinance $31.4 million in bonds that are refundable in May of 2018, which will allow us to refinancing using the most accurate current market data to save money on interest rates and protect taxpayers. Just as we cannot predict weather conditions a year away, knowing market conditions so far ahead is impossible. By refinancing a final amount today of $31.4 million, I believe on that calendar is not to exceed $32 million in bonds set to mature in May 2018. We're maximizing savings to protect taxpayers to the tune of $1.4 million based on present value analysis, while minimizing the risk of long-term uncertainty in the marketplace.
Supervisor Gillen?
I thank the councilwoman for her support of my resolution to refinance our bonds and to give the controller the discretion that he needs in order to make sure we're delivering the best results to the taxpayers. There was originally a higher threshold amount, which was not predicting into the future what the interest rates would be, because nobody really knows that. It was just giving the controller the discretion to act expeditiously if in fact market rates indicated that an action was necessary. That resolution was put forward at the advice of our bond advisors and our bond counsel. However, if we reduce the amount, we're still achieving savings for our taxpayers if the market conditions indicate, and I thank the councilwoman and the council for their support of this resolution. I vote aye. Okay, that concludes our public hearings. We are now going to remain in session for public comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Yes, we must move to adjourn. Thank you. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn? Second. Oh, wait, excuse me, second.
Excuse me, we have two separate.
I apologize. Madam Clerk, please call the severed items.
I move that these resolutions be amended. Okay.
Number 49, resolution calling public hearing March 20th, 2018, application of 2765 Broadway Realty LLC and 2200 Belmore Avenue Realty LLC for special exception, in parentheses, public garage, to permit a conversion of the existing public garage auto repair facility into a public garage auto repair facility and an auto body and paint repair facility at the premises on the southwest corner of Belmore and Grand Avenues. And item 50, resolution calling public hearing March 20th, 2018, application to consider the petition of 2765 Broadway Realty LLC and 2200 Belmore Avenue Realty LLC for a modification of declaration of restrictive covenants affecting the southwest corner of Belmore and Grand Avenues.
Thank you. I move that these resolutions be amended by changing the public hearing date from March 20th, 2018 to April 24th, 2018.
Second.
Does anyone wish to be heard on this matter? Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino?
Aye.
Councilman Blake?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Councilman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Supervisor Gillen?
Aye. Okay, now can we have that motion to adjourn?
That was on the amendment, I think we need to vote on the motion as amended.
Excuse me. May we have a roll on the motion as amended?
Councilman Ambrosino?
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Supervisor Gillen?
Aye. All right, now we're ready. May I please have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Can you please call the roll, Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino?
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Supervisor Gillen?
Aye. Okay, now we're moving into public comment. I have a number of slips. Rory Gordon.
Lucky me, I get to speak first. Supervisor, I'd like to make a suggestion. Can you have the employees, when they get called from a distance, come up to the microphone and speak? Sometimes I can't make the meeting, and the town of Hempstead live, you cannot hear them. You can't hear anything other than you guys talking into the mic and me talking into here. It should be like every meeting you gotta drill it in their head, because sometimes they're saying something that's very important. Okay, I made an interesting observation. I was reviewing the videos on the Town of Hempstead website. First, I have a question. Can you tell me the placard which has your name that's attached to the little podium, how you ended up getting that, and who's responsible for getting that for you?
The placard that's attached to the podium that we use at press conferences?
Yes, it says Supervisor Gillen.
General Services created the placard and put it on the podium.
Okay, here's what I thought was so interesting. I went back and I was looking at all the videos that the Town of Hempstead produced. And out of all the videos when Supervisor Santino was here, there was not a single video I'm sorry, there was one when Councilman Diaz-Bazita was without the supervisor. Just in the short period of time that you've been here, there's been quite a few videos that you're not in. And I think it's important that you're in every one.
Are you talking about press conferences?
It doesn't matter, the ones that are on the Town of Hempstead website. Anthony Santino was in every one of them, every single one, except that one that I found with Councilman Diaz-Bazita. The other thing that I found that was really interesting is Mr. Clavin, the tax man. He has had many conferences, but Santino was there and Murray was there. He is now the lead guy, and he never had a placard until January 1st, 2018. Can somebody explain that?
Are you talking about a placard on the podium?
Yes.
I suppose General Services made that placard too.
Yeah, isn't that strange? Now he's got his own placard. He never had one. I don't know how many years he's been the tax receiver. It's like branding, and they should rip that sucker off and put your name on it. Okay. The other thing I'd like to bring up is, can somebody pass this to the supervisor? Can you stop the clock until she gets up there, please? Thank you. Now you do. Do you know what that is?
I see it's a picture of some empty chairs and some computers.
Okay, that's in the building department, supervisor. Let me explain to you, because I'm sure you don't know, and I'll give you a little bit of an education. Or maybe you do know, I shouldn't say it. But this here is a copy of the Freedom of Information Law. And the fees for copies for records shall not exceed 25 cents per photocopy, not to exceed 14 inches. So when you go to the building department and you want to get a copy, you sit down in front of that little computer. And the first copy is $5. The second copy is $2. It is against state law. And you can speak to Robert Freeman. He's with the Committee on Open Government. I have spoken to him many times. I've spoken to Mr. Ra about this, but he completely ignores me. They are taking advantage of all the contractors in the town of Hempstead, all the little people that don't know any better. I know better. I just spent $92 on documents. It's wrong.
I'll look into those fees.
It's got to be changed, and it should be changed immediately. You are violating state law. It's really sad. But what the building department gets away with, treating the constituents the way that they do, no one else will pick that up except me, because I spent so much time there. I have spent hundreds of dollars. Yes, you can foil certain documents, but you know, by the luck of the draw, if you go to the counter, let me explain this how it works too. If you go to the counter and it's not scanned in yet, say it's a 2016, 2017, or 2018 file, the documents are 25 cents, and if they're oversized, they're $2. That's when you walk up to the counter, when you go through the elevator door, and you make a left, and the first left, that counter right there, it's great. You don't have to pay all those fees. But when it's anything older than that, and it's not scanned in, and it's scanned in, that's the amount of money that the consumer is getting ripped off. And nothing's been done about it. Thank you. Oh, would you like this copy? Because I don't need it. Could you pass it up?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Next I have Espial Malta? Espial Malta? Oh, Israel, sorry. Israel, Malta. Israel, are you here? Could be Isaiah? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time reading this. It looks like M-O-V-L-T-R-A, Malta, about the rezoning in Inwood. Okay, he's on. Jessica Arena.
Part to the commissioner of my department. My My supervisor is not allowed to do as much as write me a letter of recommendation, let alone recommend me for a full-time job. I am out of supervisors to talk with, so I figured I would appeal to the board directly. I am the go-to person at my park, which is not surprising considering there are only 2 people who've been there longer than me. I have more responsibilities than some of the full-timers I work with. I work every Friday and Saturday night with open-ended hours because if an event runs late, I am expected to stay and alter my schedule for the next day so I don't exceed the hours I'm given each week. Groups request me to work their events, and there are events that my supervisors request for me to work. I was even trained in AED, CPR, and Narcan at the request of the supervisor. There are only 4 people at my park who are requested to become certified, 3 full-timers and me. I work every shift we have, even if it means working 1 a.m. one night and coming in the next morning at 7. I do all the work that's needed, from answering phones and assisting the public to cleaning and maintaining the building. I'm the go-to person at my park because, to quote one of my supervisors, if you're here, I don't have to worry. I know everything will be done. I work through my breaks. I change my schedule at the last minute. I don't know what else I can do to prove that I deserve a full-time position. I'd like to submit to the clerk my evaluations dating as far back as 2007, when I was first hired. The only evaluation missing is my most recent because I just got it last week, but I've scored 5s across the board for everything, as I did on most of the evaluations. I watch people at my own park be hired after just 2 years part-time, despite being unable to do the required work, and so I'm at a loss why I'm still part-time, making minimum wage after almost 11 years. I hope the board will consider me for a full-time position, as well as look into why I and so many other part-timers have been constantly passed over for full-time, while less qualified people with less experience are often hired. Thank you.
Ms. Thank you so much for all of my work on behalf of the town of Hempstead. I will look into your situation, speak with your commissioner, and follow up on this. Thank you for your hard work. Laura Wiggins.
Good evening. My name is Laura L. Wiggins, and I reside in Uniondale. I've been a resident of Uniondale for almost 30 years, and I've tried to engage in various civic organizations for the betterment of Uniondale. 2 areas that I am very concerned about is the Uniondale Public School and the Uniondale Public Library. Now, I understand that Uniondale is a hamlet and that the town of Hempstead is the overseer. I've been told by so many that Uniondale really is nothing, in the sense that it has no government, no power, it cannot really voice. But the Uniondale residents pay taxes, and the Uniondale residents have inherited through A. Holly Patterson, Mr. Patterson himself, even land in Uniondale, which is in question. Now, I say all of that because there are some things that are going on in Uniondale, specifically in regards to the library, that I think should be brought to the attention of the town of Hempstead. Now, some may say that you should really go to the Commissioner of Education and other various agencies, but the town of Hempstead is the overseer. Now, there is discrimination to the utmost in Uniondale Public Library. There is a question in regards to the members who serve on the board. At one time, 5 members totaled almost 100 years, because between the public school and the library, they switch back and forth taking turns. Now, there is a question in regards to how they were advised by a state audit to accept bids for certain projects after a certain amount. And they have not done that, to the point that the last project, which was quoted by the director at that time, Mrs. Christine Billing, that there would be $140,000, that is $137,000 for the renovation of 4 bathrooms, which consists of a toilet and a sink in each bathroom. Now, there was also a charge of approximately $3,000 for permits for the town of Hempstead. This was voted on by the board, which accepted and gave the bid out. It's been almost a year now. 4 bathrooms have not been completed. There have been a number of mistakes. Even the toilets that were the size of kindergarten toilets for children were placed in the bathroom. When you have seniors who go to the bathroom, no safety bar or anything. I come here because the board, who is charged with the responsibility of acting and on the behalf of the community, they are not doing that. Now, I know that one could say that you can vote them out, but the bottom line is when you have a containment and you contain the information so that the public does not know, there is a problem. There is a problem when you have tonight it was mentioned about bonding and you're saving money. I don't know, is Hempstead, the town of Hempstead, acting as a financial agent in bonding Uniondale? Oh, I know.
Yeah, so, ma'am, I am not your councilman. Your member of this board is not here tonight because she's upstate representing us as a whole town at the annual meeting of the State Town Association. So she's not here. It's Dorothy Gooseby. She represents your area. And when you say that we're overseers, we're not overseers. We are your government in Uniondale, and your representative is Dorothy Gooseby. The public library is controlled by a public library district that has their own elections and elects their own people. Where we do have jurisdiction, and certainly we'll bring it to Councilwoman Gooseby's attention and to our building department's attention, is that we have jurisdiction over how they do the construction once a building permit is issued. So I'm sure that we'll bring this to the attention of Councilwoman Gooseby, who is your elected representative, and also to our building department.
Well, let me just state this, that as I stated, $3,000 for permits, but this week there was posted a new site, statement, which did not have the permit cost on it. Now, as I stated, that the director, she resigned, and then she was rehired by the board as an advisor. There are 2 advisors to the director, the new director that was appointed. There's 2 assistant directors. The question is, you, senior woman, Dorothy Gooseby, yes, she represents our area. But the town of Hempstead, and I'm here because, it's a new day. You're new. And I have just about gone to everyone in knocking on their door in regards to the condition in Uniondale. But there must be, to bring it to her attention, she's not here, but you are here, and you are the head.
Thank you for your comments. We're going to look into the things the matters you addressed. I'll discuss them with Councilwoman Gooseby. But now I have to call somebody because we have many slips for public comment. But I'd be happy to follow up with you. We'll follow up with you, all right? Thank you. Mr. Procacci?
I also brought up those building fees being $5 years ago, and they just ignored it. It's against the law. The building department just doesn't want to do anything about it, and Supervisor Santino, and I don't know if it went back to Supervisor Murray or not when I brought it up, but definitely Supervisor Santino knows about it. When you redo your website, I don't know if you already got somebody, you were using Joomla, the development tools, the content management system. I would recommend WordPress. You can get a lot more developers, so you don't have to go to California to find them. You can find WordPress developers on the street. My son's one, so he's 14, he can't work it yet. Supervisor Gillen, do you know why the town of Hempstead has a law requiring windows in restaurants?
I believe that was passed in the prior administration, and they...
I want to know...
Maybe who brought forward that resolution? Mr. Rod, do you know? So they can answer the question.
It was passed a number of years ago based on public safety concerns.
I understand that, but do you personally, Supervisor Gillen, know why we have a law that requires windows in restaurants?
I understand it's for public safety reasons.
But as far as you've been given no other information but that sentence? What happens if you go into a restaurant without windows? Do you explode? What happens?
That's never happened to me.
I understand, but nobody has explained what the purpose of having the windows are.
I don't know if I've ever been in a restaurant with no windows.
I'm asking, aside from that, will you ever explain the reason why windows in restaurants are needed?
It's never come up for discussion with me because I wasn't here when that.
You've never asked the town attorney?
It's not been an issue that's brought to my attention or but brought before the town board since
I understand. I just want to know if you ever asked him why we have a law that requires windows in restaurants, and we never asked him that question. Is that correct?
It's something I can follow up with.
Yes, I would like that. Are you going to re-notice the short-term ban legislation, because it's a clear violation by all that I've given you? I've sent the data to Councilwoman Sweeney. It's very clear that it's improper, and once again, would you do it out of the kindness of the board's heart as opposed to requiring litigation? You took out the salary cap, and because you didn't want to go through litigation, and this is also...
I also thought the salary cap had absolutely nothing to do with that.
It doesn't, but the thing is, well, there are municipalities that have salary caps, but the thing is, aside from that, but you implemented that. Now, it's clear that this is a violation of the law, that notice. So, are you going to re-notice the short-term rental ban on the fact that it was never noticed properly?
We believe that the short-term rental ban was noticed.
You're going to say anything. I wasn't talking. I knew you'd say that. It's wrong. Just like the windows in restaurants. You have a standard line for everything. I mean, it's just ridiculous. The ethics law, when is it going to be modified to include public participation? That's 2 sentences you have to add. Very simple. You don't need an attorney to write it. It was already written by Councilwoman Sweeney. I loved what she did. And she had it done a month after it was noticed the first time, and now it's 6 months later, and we somehow
have trouble getting those two sentences out, just like windows in restaurants and things that the town doesn't want to do.
Well, because we're looking to add more than 2 sentences, Mr. Prakaji, and we're not going to do it piecemeal. We're taking a comprehensive look at the current ethics litigation. We'll be working with the town board to address certain things that were raised in the past, both by Councilman Blakeman and by Councilwoman Keith Sweeney, and move forward with a revision to the ethics code.
But those two sentences will protect the taxpayers in the meantime, while, once again, you take your sweet time with things that...
I've been here 50...
No.
I'm not taking my sweet time. This is not something that you look at in like 2 weeks.
I don't need to you directly.
I want to make sure that we do a comprehensive review and that we pass valid legislation, which is something you seem to be very concerned about. So that's what I think we want to do, and the other members of the town board want to do as well.
But it's just so interesting how when somebody feels threatened, they come up with legislation, 1, 2, 3. We had a bunch of things that Councilwoman Sweeney did. I all agree with everything she did. And then, once again, once her threat goes away, the legislation goes away, and it has to be thoughtfully thought through. That's very upsetting to me, when those kind of things. It's just like Nick Curry, his father was a big wig in the GOP, the whole thing with the town of Hempstead Animal Shelter was a big thing. I could talk about the IDA, which recently the judge ruled in the favor of the mall, and when that happened, I asked Councilman Supervisor Santino over and over again. He would not explain. He had a press conference, took no comments. Unnecessary litigation. He threatened to fire a board. They made them resign for no reason, caused a bunch of consternation for no reason. We got the same stuff from Joe Rod during that period of time too, for no reason. We accomplished absolutely nothing except spent a lot of money. And like I'm asking you things that are clearly wrong. The short-term rental ban legislation is incorrectly noticed. And by the way, I followed John Rodcamp's resume and qualifications by town law. He is not qualified to be the building commissioner, by town law. Now, will you do that and look into that? Because once again, it's a matter of me filing a lawsuit or something like that. It always comes down to the taxpayer spending money. You didn't want to spend money, you, the board, didn't want to spend money on litigation for your salary caps here, but when it comes to the taxpayer, you know you can outspend me until I die. You just keep on appealing, another motion. You could throw every resident into bankruptcy, which you've done, you, the town board, has done to litigants, because you have deep pockets and you can litigate to death. We don't have that luxury. The ethics legislation, the 2 sentences I'm asking you is in the meantime, is just to protect the residents, to give them some rights that they don't have, that they've never had.
Thank you, Mr. Picasso. Stephanie Capuano.
So pretty.
Thank you.
I just want to say hello to everybody here.
Can you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Capuano, Montauk. And I know we're all on board. We were talking about cell towers and all this before, but aside from all that, with the children with the cell phones, infertility, I won't get into all that. But my passion is the animal shelter. And Erin, I wanted to know, I have to ask Erin a question. I know this is funny, Erin, but can you please pay attention a little bit? I have to talk to you about something. It's okay. It's okay. It's no problem. Erin, I did text, email you about something. Did you get my email? My name is Stephanie Capuano.
I'll take a look at it, I'm not sure. Alex, could you resend it to me where
Well, anyway, I texted you.
Yeah.
Are you the one that's in my area with the shelter? You my council person? I'm not sure.
I live in Wantaw. I probably represent Councilman Dunn and I share Wantaw, so it depends where you live in Wantaw.
Okay, well, I live in Bayview. I didn't know, I wasn't really sure. So, and I do love Wantaw. So, but the only thing is my passion is the shelter, as we know. So, I know you're all getting an eye and earful recently, which is a good thing. And that Laura said you're all on board to make improvements, as you see. And I would like to talk for a minute, that I believe that under these extreme circumstances, the director should be removed from the shelter. I think that with all these lawsuits, there's merit that these animals are in peril, and we know that, and he's a danger to the animals. And also, I question the people that he works with as well, or anybody that's involved with these animals, the people that drop them, the people that I don't want to get into all this right now. I just want to talk, okay? I feel that he's very dangerous, extremely, and I feel he should be removed, and I don't understand why it's taking so long. I mean, even though he's in litigation, under those circumstances, I think that he should just be removed immediately until, and I think that, I don't care if any of these people, get jobs and they know people, I don't care, but as far as the animal shelter, the people that should get jobs should be in water tower department or something, but not at the animal shelter. The animal shelter, we have a director that doesn't even talk to the animals or walk through a cat room, doesn't like cats. He doesn't even like handle the dogs at all. Now, is the director just supposed to call the shots, as far as what capacity, where this goes? He's not even doing a good job with the budget. But, or I don't understand why he's in charge still. If all these allegations are being investigated, doesn't that merit him being removed immediately? I mean, this is horrible. And another thing I want to ask you, Erin, I mean, you work for us, and I really believe that you and Mr. Dunn, I don't believe there's anybody here that doesn't like animals enough to think that there should be some cause to believe that he is endangering the animals somehow, with some of the things that he does. So he doesn't even go through a cat room. How do you have a director that doesn't walk through a room? A lot of men don't like cats, but he doesn't even talk to dogs. So how do you have a director that does that for an animal shelter? I don't get it. Not only that, but the allegations are hard. Isn't there a code of ethics at the shelter? Like, my organization, we had a book, a code of ethics that we went by. We had to adhere to that. We had people that we had to speak to about things. Where does he go? Where does it go from there? What does he just call the shot? I'm not even going to get into anything that isn't polite, okay? So I also want to say that when they have people that go there, that work there, I've heard from so many people in the past, because I've known this for years, since the 80s, that the shelter needed reform. So, and I know it's hard to do, but now with all these allegations and everything, I think it should be a little easier to get the right people in charge. Especially now, the time is now. I mean, Nassau County deserves a shelter that's really for the people, that would make us look the way we deserve to be looked. We spent a lot of money on the shelter. I don't care who gets what job where, but the shelter should be for the shelter. We want reform to the shelter. We don't want him there anymore. He's not a good person. He's not really somebody that
Ms. Castellano, I'm sorry, but you should not attack his character, saying he's not a good person. Every allegation that's made with respect to the animal shelters since I've been sitting here is taken seriously and investigated. But there can't just be an allegation, there has to be proof. So to say that there's an allegation, not every allegation is backed by credible evidence.
A lot of people are afraid to say anything because they have a job, because they deal with animals, because they bring their animals in. So you're not going to hear it from these people, and that's the problem.
But I am hearing allegations, and some of the allegations are being investigated, and the allegations are just not...
So why is he still here?
But they're not, the allegations are not being found well-founded.
You think a man that's a director that doesn't walk through a cat room is okay? And let me tell you this, one more thing I want to discuss. When people go there and they get jobs, part-timers, they're told they have to be a member of the Republican Party. Otherwise, they will not get to be a full-timer. And this is not an allegation. These are a lot of people that are saying, they can tell you right now.
Well, if you can find people who will tell me that and sign an affidavit, and that, I'll take
There
it.
should be a code of ethics. And if you really believe that Michael Story should be the director there, then I'll just not come to another meeting.
I don't take a position on that, but I say that if there are allegations against Mr. Pastori, they have to be well-founded.
Animals, not a person.
I agree, and everybody cares about the welfare of our animals.
Talk to a dog.
So I invite you that if you have allegations, Ms. Capuano, provide me with, you give me an affidavit of somebody who's gonna tell me some of the things that you're
Well, I'd
saying.
like one of you girls to get up there. Where's my friends here? Wendy or, when did you go?
Okay, next I have Nancy Jarvis.
Why don't you, she wants to go up. She'll go up.
I just got called.
I just got called.
Nancy Garris, I 13 North Atlanta Avenue, North Massapequa. There was a couple of, actually 3 items that I wanted to speak to in regard, just for clarification and for public record. There's been a lot of talk in the room about civil service and civil service testing, and it makes it sound like it's a very objective and fair situation. For the people in this room who don't realize it, the town of Hempstead is its own civil service department. So when jobs, and there are people in need of jobs, frequently tests are written and provided specific to their job qualities, qualifications, even as down to where they live and residence. So if this is not a typical civil service that's being dictated, I'm an educator and a teacher, and I understand through the CSEA, there are civil service that's dictated by New York State that everyone must abide by. However, the town of Hempstead is its own, so they make up the rules as they go along. So those tests are often only brought up when there is a particular person that they'd like to move into a particular position. So just for clarification for the public, make no mistake, they make up their own rules as we go along. So please, I want that to be clear. Additionally, while we're getting our financial ducks in a row, the town of Hempstead Animal Shelter, where I am a full-time employee, does work extraordinary hours, unlike office work that's generally Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We work weekends, we work late nights, and so on. It came to my attention that myself and 12 other people were not given shift differential for our Thursday evenings. I work from 12:30 to 8:30 to accommodate the public. I'm owed a sum of at least somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000, and I'm not the only one. I've tried to be patient. We've been told over and over again within the shelter that this was being dealt with. The last we heard with, it's on the 4th floor. So to all of you who are on the 4th floor, myself and the 11 other people that are owed shift differential from 2012 through 2017 would very much like and appreciate that money because we have bills to pay as well. Additionally, something I'd like to bring to your attention. I'm an employee for over 6 years. I'm a full-time employee with an impeccable record. I'm never late. I work diligently, I work passionately, I'm an educator, and I'm there for the sole purpose of the good of the animals. With that being said, there had been times, because unlike other office positions that go 9 to 5, and you can just take your papers and put them to the side and they'll be there tomorrow, when you're working with the public and constituents who have come in and the lives of animals are at stake, you don't necessarily able to walk out at the end of your shift. I've come to realize that overtime, comp time, all of that is off the table. And I think that's unfair. However, being the kind of person that I am, I continue to stay beyond the close of the shelter to finish pertinent business, to get notes that are time sensitive into the record, or perhaps even to take a dog out that has to go to the bathroom, or clean up a cage, or whatever needs to be done. I'm working directly with the public every single day and facilitating adoptions. So for me to look at someone at the end of my shift and say it's 6:30, I'm sorry, Ms. Gillen, we've got to go punch out, is rude and undisturbs the constituents. And while I understand that I'm working on my own time, and I'm actually okay with that, I think it's unfair, but I'm willing to do that because that's what's important to me. I've actually been threatened by my supervisor, who came to me and told me that if I'm to stay beyond the end of my shift, even though there's cameras that can document what I'm doing, there's computers that document my entries, I am in violation of the town's no loitering policy, and I will face reprimand. So I'm under the pressure of either putting the good and the appropriate care for either the animals that are there or with the public that I'm serving, and having to be either short or abrupt or take the chance that I'm going to continue to do what's right and moral and ethical and risk being brought up for disciplinary charges. I've never been on disciplinary charges in my entire life. And I just want you to know the kind of pressure that's being put on hardworking, passionate, diligent employees, and I'm not the only one. For a supervisor to come and speak to me and threaten me with the no loitering policy for working beyond my time on my own is horrendous. And I think that's something you need to be aware of.
Next is Valerie Lane.
Valerie Lamb, still Baldwin. Mr. Rob, hi, question. Can you do me a favor, and I'm very interested in your definition as a town attorney of incompetence.
He is.
I'm glad to have a discussion with you.
Good, because I called your office several weeks ago and
You called me about Councilwoman Boothby. I sent it to Councilwoman Boothby's office.
Yeah, she never called me back either. I called her separately. Okay, so let's have a conversation. Okay, next question. Can you tell me how many lawsuits are currently against the town of Hempstead Animal Shelter? Just the shelter.
I'm not sure. I don't think there's 3 or 4.
How many?
I think 3 or 4, but I'm not sure.
I believe it's 5 or 6, but okay. And let's say it's 4. How many of those lawsuits actually name Mike Pastore in the lawsuits and call for the removal of this director?
I don't know.
I believe it's all of them. Every single one.
Are these lawsuits still pending, Mr. Roth?
Yes.
All these lawsuits are still pending, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. I'm curious to know who handles these lawsuits on the basis of representing the town. Who's representing the town?
Various law firms.
Okay. So who's representing the suit which is about the 2 dogs which were euthanized within 24 hours, stripped from a family who doesn't even speak or read or comprehend English, and were forced to sign under extreme duress while animal control was removing the animals from their home, 2 dogs that used to sleep with the children. Who's representing the township on that case?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, I would just like to let you know that those people are only, this case has been in litigation for 4 years, and they were asking for only $1,000, and that's only because they had to name a dollar amount because they don't even want the money. Anyway, look, here's my whole thing. Let me try to summarize this. In sum, I want to commend the audit. Thank you, Laura. I really appreciate that. I view that as going through the airport, and as far as I'm concerned, let security go through every single piece of my luggage and carry-on and personal items, and I'll even do a strip search to ensure the fact that we're all going to be safe on the plane. So I commend your audit, and I thank you for that. But look.
To be clear, there are no strip searches ordered for the animal shelter.
I mean, I've been coming to these meetings now, almost every single one, for a while now, and has anyone ever seen this many people come to the table and actually request the removal of one specific person, other than Anthony Santino, which we accomplished, by the way. But this is a clear-cut message, and Laura, I don't know if you know this, but so I got engaged last week, and the reason I'm saying this is because I'm going to guilt you into a gift. I don't need a crock pot, I don't need anything like that, we have plenty of wine glasses. I'm asking you to at least suspend this guy based on the lawsuits alone, based on the fact that 4 to 5 cases right now that have been going on for years name this person. I run a business. If someone came to me and told me that one of my employees was causing a litany of complaints and a half dozen lawsuits that I would then have to spend money on defending taxpayer money,
Like the town clerk was.
at least freeze it, at least shift him somewhere, suspend him without pay, suspend him. Now. I don't know who just said that, but I really, really agree with that. And Mr. Ra, I look forward to that conversation. For the record, my cell phone is 516-445-5069. I'd like to hear from you. Thank you.
Congratulations on your engagement.
Thank you. I want my gift.
Mita Meredith?
I did sign
Hey,
up.
Mary Goldman, I'm just glad I have my cancer-causing Bluetooth in my ear, otherwise the bad air would be going in there. I would just
just like to have an update, I believe, on the discussion I had with Councilman Dunn and the Commissioner with regard to what's taking place with this Veterans Registry and the whole Veteran Services. And once again, please don't ask me about the request for me to provide a list, because there's much more to it than that. So I just want to ask, since we're now, like I said, in the third week of February, with regard to what is actually being moved forward, what is new, what is actually in development, in the works with regard to our veterans and veteran business development and outreach.
Okay, we're looking into how we can help with employment. We've spoken with the, excuse me? The mic is on. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm very close. There's quite a few things we've been doing in the last few weeks. We didn't wait for your report, the registry. We went ahead and spoke to different department heads. We've about things like mechanics in the different departments that have trucks and cars, and we're trying to ascertain, just today we discussed this, information from veterans coming out of the military right now that have worked on vehicles while they were in service to help with our fleets. The Parks Department trying to get active duty personnel the veterans discount every day, because veterans only get it 2 days a week. Well, we'll give them active duty, we're going to be deployed or deployed, get them every day. Housing, we're trying to do something with the zombie homes, but we're waiting for legislation that we understood was in Washington, and we're going to see what we can do with it, and we're working on that. We're waiting for information on that. 2 parking spots in every town facility for active duty to have open spots. I know that's not big, but it might be for them. Make them feel special when they come home right now. There's a lot of things that we're working on. The Department of Occupational Resources has a tremendous amount of things that they do for veterans. And we just have to advertise it and get it out there to people so that veterans know what's going on. There's the registry. I work with some of our departments trying to get a veterans registry. So when we do contracts, we have the veterans and what their contracts do, what their companies do. So we can look at them and send the bids out to them. The benefit counseling. I've spent time with Mr. Gales, and he's doing a very good job getting benefits for many of the men and women in the town of Hempstead. We should probably get them to go to different spots, because everybody coming to town hall is very difficult. But it's difficult to do that also. It all takes logistics and it takes time. So outreach to the VA hospitals and veterans organizations, knowing as soon as we find out what we're going to be doing, we're going to then do the outreach to the veterans organizations. The American Legion, the VFW, the DAP, the Marine Corps League, the AMVETS, there's so many veterans organizations. So we do have a list of things that we are working on presently. Is it happening fast enough? No, it's not. I'd love to have had it done already. But you know what, things do take a while to get done. So we are addressing your concerns and my concerns. So hopefully that answered some of your questions. If you do have stuff, you know, in your time, get it to us, and it'll help us. But we're not waiting for you. We're going to go ahead and do what we can to take care of the men and women that serve our country.
Well, I thank you for at least letting me and the public know something. I really don't know whether to really be thankful or to be highly insulted, because, again, I feel that there's an opportunity that continues to be lost. And as I hear about all of these various and sundry positions and things that are being filled by people who may or may not be qualified, and to continue to know that I have been in this arena and considered a leader, an expert, you know, it's almost like you're appreciated more so outside of your home base than where you pay your taxes. So I just find that to be quite interesting, that it still seems to be such an infancy process where there had been opportunity to move it a lot forward, a lot faster, and more forward. But anyway, I have said my piece on that, and it looks like you have to always look at what's going on in the private sector, because the public sector just cannot seem to incorporate those who have the skill sets to get the job done, and that's why we have situations where we seem to have so many lawsuits and we can't seem to pay them. Secondly, my concern again with diversity and sensitivity training overall, considering so many people were so excited with the opportunity of a new day coming into 2018, I am concerned about where the employees who continue to lack having a voice, what resources they are getting in terms of the sensitivity training. There are still some departments in this township where you have the same people, and they are not very courteous to the residents when they come in for various services and resources. Some of them also lack some of the information that is warranted in the positions that they have been assigned to, and as has been mentioned earlier, they seem to get raises at least every 3 months at this rate. So I'm asking again as to where is the education, the awareness, where's the training as it pertains to harassment concerns, the bullying that took place. It's not something that was going to just automatically disappear when there was an election, because there's still clearly, from what I've been hearing earlier, some people in positions where employees are continuing to be intimidated. Again, if this township continues to like to be sued, if we don't realize that we're sitting on ticking time bombs and we may be the ones that are spotlighted by the news at any time, then that's fine. But there are those of us that continue to try to be proactive in bringing this information to the forefront. So our animals clearly are in jeopardy. Our veterans continue to struggle, but I guess if they get an additional parking space, or if they get the opportunity to meet with Mr. Gales at some designated point when he is available.
Just let me expand on it. The Department of Occupational Resources has jobs. They do employment, they try to find employment for veterans. They also do resumes, help them with resumes. They train them for different jobs. They also do help them with computers, learning different computer skills. The town already does a lot of things for veterans, but we're trying to put together something where we can advertise what we do and help the veterans out. So it's not just parking spots. I really hesitated to say that to you because I knew you would think it was insulting. But I think a guy or gal coming home and they see that there's a spot for them, it might make them feel a little bit better. You know, you say 22 men and women that serve our country a day commit suicide. A little thing might make them feel a little bit better. And maybe just take them out of that funk. I don't think it will, but you know what? Let's try it. Why not? We'll try something. So it's not insulting, we're trying stuff.
I don't believe I said the word insulting. I said I was insulted because, again, when you come to the table and you have the experience and the expertise that I bring to the table, it's not just about asking me for a list. That is what I said, to be perfectly clear. No offense taken. It's 2018. I'm trying to be more understanding. But I am still concerned about, again, the time frame that it is taking when there have been numerous opportunities to actually move this needle forward. And again, we do have veterans, because of the technology and the support that they get within the Department of Defense, they already have that skill set. So they really need to get a little bit more than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Meriday. Next, we have Wendy Cariello.
I mean, I haven't even been up there yet, and I've seen the same people over and over again.
Gwen Cariello, Baltimore, New York. I have to say, I really hate public speaking. So I've been going to these meetings for about 2 years and I've never spoken, but I feel really compelled to speak. I want to say I'm thrilled about the audit. My feeling is if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. I'm a little concerned that there's been so much time that's elapsed, that there's been time to make changes, remove things, delete things, so I hope that hasn't happened. But I definitely think that there should be an outside audit because you don't ask the head to investigate the body when there's an illness. I also want to say, because you had asked Supervisor Gillen about the accusation that people are kind of pressured with the Republican Club. When I first went to work at the shelter, I worked there 5.5 years. From the first day I started, I heard 2 things. Who do you know? And you're in the Republican Club, right? And then the entire time I was there, I was constantly pressured to join the Republican Club, which I did not do. And I always used to say, I can't, I'm an anarchist. So, regarding the overdue bills, I haven't worked in the shelter since I resigned in July 2016. This past December, I knew those bills were overdue. I heard it through the underground grapevine. So I find it hard to believe that the controller's office was not aware, and I'm a little concerned that whoever you have assigned to the shelter did not ask to look at records and bills and take that initially as part of the job. In terms of the vets that are hired as outside sources, I absolutely agree that they should be opened up as bid jobs, because I can tell you, before I went to work at the shelter for 5.5 years, I worked in veterinary for 11. And I don't like to publicly malign anybody, but the first veterinary hospital that's mentioned in this was the hospital that no matter where I worked or who I spoke to always went, oh my God, don't take your animals there. They were known to be overpriced. They were known to do a lot of unnecessary procedures. Animals would come in very ill that you never vaccinate, because you never vaccinate an animal or a child. If they're ill, you don't do that to their immune system. They vaccinate them because that would pump up the bills. So I found it appalling when I worked at the shelter, and I found out that they were now one of the vets that we used as an outside source. The other vet, I can't say for sure, but I do know that at least one of the veterinary specialists on Long Island has shares that the vets own, so they have a purpose in sending people there. I can't say for sure it's that one, but I do know that one of them, so they definitely should be put out to bid, and the vets should be well investigated. In terms of the labs, I can tell you from my time working at a veterinary office, labs like to do work with places that supply volume. The more volume you supply, the more perks they give you. The free vaccines, or whatever their particular perk is that they're offering. So I find it very hard to believe that if the shelter had a great reputation for paying its bills on time, there wouldn't be multiple labs trying to get that job with the volume of business coming from the shelter. I also know that that particular lab was not one that was used by any of the vets that I know in the outside field. So those are just the things I wanted to let you know. And I'll probably never speak again.
Well, thank you for your comments. Mary Ellen Craig?
Thank you, Mary Ellen Cray, 436 Locust Avenue, Uniondale. So as far as the cell towers go, you may not be aware that there are actually 2 water towers on the same water district property in Uniondale. One is the Uniondale Water District and the other is the East Meadow Water District. So I would like to know how many cell towers are on the East Meadow Water District and what the carriers are, please.
Commissioner, do you have that information? Yes, I do. Thank you. We'll have an answer for you in a moment.
At the East Meadow Water District site, we have Verizon Wireless and AT&T Wireless.
And how many?
Verizon is authorized for up to 12 antennas and AT&T for 9. I believe Verizon, I'm not sure if they have 12 or 9 up that they're authorized for. They pay for 12, but they might not have all 12 up.
I see. Thank you very much. So you can see that as a result, we have 42 cell towers. Did I do my math right? Right in that particular area of Uniondale, which is close to the school, which is close to the senior center, and other activities. I had the impression that there was a moratorium on strip malls in the town of Hempstead. Is that correct?
Not correct.
Is there any kind of legislation or resolution that affects the number of strip malls for a community or something of that sort?
No.
Well, there should be. Definitely should be, so I'm hoping that you will look into that, because I think that strip malls are not really an advantage to a community. Everyone knows the kind of businesses which go into them, the nail groups, the delis, the various really not strong business type situations. The signs are down on Front Street where the laundromat was proposed, and I'm just wondering, does this mean that the proposal was withdrawn, or was something happening with it? Is it 938 or something like that, Front Street?
This is a Board of Zoning Appeals case, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I will look into it for you and let you know.
I'd appreciate that, because I have no idea what it means that the signs are down, whether they withdrew it, whether something else happened, a decision was made, so on. And then I was asked by Pearl Jacobs from Nostrum Gardens to request information on the Uniondale Street project. Do we have a date to begin?
I'm not aware. I know that Commissioner Bacon, she's here.
Oh, good. Same here.
Commissioner Bakich, Department of Planning and Economic Development. We're working with the engineering department. It's been designed. We're just waiting. The bids have been put out. We have them. We're just waiting for the start date. It'll probably be early spring, be weather sensitive. And we're also dealing with Nassau County, as you know, we're doing the project. I understand there's a meeting next month, I believe, at the Uniondale Library, and we will be discussing it at that meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner.
The date by any chance?
I believe it's the 12th, Monday the 12th. Right.
Okay, and who is it the town that's?
Yes. Yeah, Councilwoman Gooseby is having a meeting, yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Linda Bell?
Good evening. My name is Linda Bell and I live in Lakeview. I'm here tonight, and this is my first time here, so if I do something, whatever, please forgive me.
You're doing fine.
It's been hard, trust me, it's been hard sitting here. I live in Lakeview, and there are so many commercial vehicles on private property that I believe that it is against the law for them to be there. And so I would like some assistance with reference to getting them removed. I was just speaking in the back with gentlemen as well. We also have a number of abandoned homes. And this is not making my neighborhood look good. I mean, I know that there are other areas in Nassau County where it is not allowed, but yet it seems to be allowed in my neighborhood. And so I would like someone to do something to be able to correct that.
As far as the possibility of illegal parking on your street from commercial vehicles, the building department will respond. If it's complaint driven, you have to call. Somebody has to call and complain. They don't just go by like the Gestapo and say, oh, it's so good, we're going to take care of it. Oh, stop that guy. That has to be complaint driven. So if you call them and say, at this address, there's a vehicle that really shouldn't be there. It's just wrong in my neighborhood. That, or whatever you think is wrong, the town of Hempstead responds to complaints. They don't just go out and do things on their own because it's too much to do. So if you complain about it, they'll send somebody, or they'll tell you if it's legal or not legal. So it's best to call the town hall and then ask for the building department, and they'll connect you to somebody to answer that question for you.
Right, I understand. I was just speaking with the gentleman back there. It just seems to me that, well, let me explain this. I did speak with Celia Bino, and she passed on information that I had given her with reference to this to Councilwoman Gooseby. Up to date, I haven't seen anything that happened with reference to the addresses that I gave her. But it would seem to me that as residents who are paying taxes, that we have to go out, I have to go out, ride around my neighborhood, take the addresses of each and every thing or each and every car that is there illegally and send it in to you. It would seem to me that there would be some type of code enforcement that would make certain that neighborhoods are taken care of. If it was Garden City, Rockville Center, I'm sure these things would not be allowed.
Right, just to speak on behalf of Senior Councilwoman Gooseby, because she's in New York City today attending the meeting on our behalf. And I'm sure there are people here from her staff who are more than happy to talk to you about your specific concerns. If you want to talk to her, so I'm sure that they can address your concerns. I mean, in the areas that I live as well, I represent, we have those problems as well. And we try to send code enforcement out, but as much as we would love to have everything covered, we just don't have enough resources. But I'm sure she would be able, her staff would be able to speak with you about it tonight.
You join the Civic Association.
I am part of the Civic Association, and we are the ones who are trying to get this done. But again, it seems to be roadblocks that are put up that that we're not heard. That it doesn't if it's illegal in any community for this to happen, then why can't it be taken care of by the town?
I'm sure it can be. Mr. Lester, would you mind speaking to her? Thank you. Mr. Lester is over there, and he's from Councilwoman Gooseby's office, and I'm sure he can help you out.
Okay, next we have Lucille Defina.
I was going to wait till we meet privately, but I have to ask you, when you say the allegations about the story have not been true, who's giving you this information? Who's doing your investigation? Because remember, there was at least 24 people who hand over proof, documents, testimonies, everything over to what they thought was an investigator that ended up being one of Santino's plants. So they just fed them all this stuff, and it just made their life worse, and half of them are gone today. So who is now telling you this stuff that because the threatening is going on, the bullying is still going on, the incompetence is still going on, the mismanagement is still going on. And now, even worse, the last time I was at the shelter, he made a statement of the behaviorist doesn't put her notes into the computer. Someone puts them in for her. So even the policies of procedures of people being held accountable for what they do, vets being held accountable for their diagnosis, trainers being held accountable for their evaluations and going through the entire evaluation procedure, all of that is now gone from your expensive $30,000 a year pet phone system. You might as well throw it out the window.
Let's be clear, there's a difference between policies and procedures and a difference between making specific allegations against an individual.
The allegation.
And if there are specific allegations against an individual, just saying something, it has to be backed up by credible evidence in order for us to act on it. And there have been some allegations that have been made that I'm not going to discuss publicly because they're allegations that we were found that did not pan out against Mr. Pastore, that we investigated and we found out that the allegations, which were really quite scandalous, were not true at all. And so if you expect us as a town board to act on allegations, they have to be backed by proof. We can't just fire people or terminate people or suspend people because you want us to. There has to be proof. And the fact that there's a lawsuit, the lawsuit hasn't been proven yet. Those lawsuits haven't been resolved yet. So even if there's things that have been handed over in a lawsuit, that hasn't been proven yet. It hasn't been adjudicated. So that is not, just because you want us to fire somebody doesn't mean we can just go fire somebody.
But you have a trainer who was hired before she even had the proper credentials. And other applicants were passed up. He was all a part of that process. And now you still have that trainer there who is never there. There is no training going on. It's very obvious. I don't think you need a big investigation for this. Plus, you still have harassment, you still have threats, you still have bullying. You heard another one tonight.
If you come to me with credible evidence that a harassment is occurring or bullying is occurring, then we will act on it. But I can't just have allegations and text messages about it. I need documentary proof. If you have someone who's going to come forward and sign an affidavit and say this happened, and they can prove what happened, that's one thing. But if you're just making allegations against somebody because you don't like them or you don't think they're doing a good job, that's not enough to act on.
What about the 24 other, remember the big investigation? We had 2 of them here. And all those people who came forward, and most of them are now gone, but there are still a few left, and Nancy's still in there being harassed and a bunch of other people. What happened to all those documents, testimonies, paperwork? What happened to that? Did that go through the shredder too? Where did that stuff go?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So now it's what the history of what has gone on here, what has brought you here, Supervisor?
I can just tell you about allegations that were brought to my attention, that were investigated, and were not found to be well-founded.
The guy who didn't give your liaison information about the bills, that guy?
I'd be happy to discuss them with you outside of this meeting because, I don't want to repeat the allegations because we found that the allegations were not true. So I don't want to repeat allegations that were found not to be true.
Okay. So
against a particular individual.
We have an animal shelter that has no vet care now that's through the roof that I'm unfortunately finding out it might be some quack vet, and a behaviorist that's non-existent. And this is okay? This is just okay?
Okay, so let's just review since I have come in, what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do an RFQ for privatization for shelter services. I'm working with the town board on looking at this to see if that's an option. We don't know if it's the best option, but I'm working with the other members of the town board to put out an RFQ to explore different options for the shelter. Okay, we're issuing an RFP for a behaviorist. We're issuing an RFP for veterinary services. We installed extra security cameras in the animal shelter to cover kennels, kennel runs, the garage, the medical room, the isolation room, the trailers, and the medical van. Okay, all those cameras have just gone in. We repainted the animal shelter. We're reviewing the policies and procedures. We're updating policies and procedures in conjunction with the staff there, and procedure documents to reflect current practices, focusing on updating policies to reflect modern shelter procedures and best practices. Let's see, what else are we doing? TNR program changes to target the feral cat populations. Trapping areas, we're looking at our trapping areas and one-off trapping. As I said, we painted all the kennel areas to give it a fresh coat to make it look better. We have upcoming capital projects that we've been discussing in terms of replacing kennel bay doors, awnings over the dog runs in the rear of the animal shelter, and we're looking at training for shelter staff and volunteers. Okay, so 50 days. There you go.
That's good. Start.
Okay, so we've done all that already. We went through all the policies, procedure, all of this was in place. And the problem is, the person that dismantled it is still running your shelter. So what a waste of time. Don't you realize what you're doing is a total waste of time?
We'll see.
You already got lots of proof here tonight. Okay, and not only if you have the wrong director in place, and then you don't have the right liaison, or people who even know the right policies and procedures and how things should run. What, you think just sitting there and reading off a list is going to do this? I don't think so.
I don't think reading off a list, but I think taking a serious look at the animal shelter and all the policies and procedures that are in place, and doing an RFQ and putting out RFPs will bring change to our animal shelter. And we're doing these things, and we're doing an audit to ensure, we install these cameras to ensure that if things that you say are going on are actually going on.
Cameras have been there forever.
No, these are new cameras, Lucille.
Who's watching them?
They're new cameras, Lucille.
New people watching them? New people, the old people, the same
The
thing.
cameras are monitored by public safety.
Oh, great! It's the old people again. So that's what I'm saying. You're wasting your time.
Well, if you have an allegation of something that occurred, I can look at the camera and I can see if it's happening or not. So bring that to my attention. Okay? Jonathan Davis. Pearl Jacobs. Okay, that concludes our town board meeting. Thank you, everybody.
I signed a sheet and I never got called.
I don't have a sheet for you, Mr. Edmondson, you can come up.
And I'm the Democrat. Committee person.
I don't have a sheet for you.
Yes, I know.
I have a sheet.
Okay. I talked to him out there and I said, "Can I call him an order?" And she said she sent it in there. Steve Edmondson, 100 Bird Avenue, Road, decided till the 27th of this month, and I don't know when I'm gonna live. Okay, you have a truck that's parked on New Bridge Avenue and Hempstead Turnpike, selling tacos till 3 o'clock in the morning, which is against the town of Hempstead ordinance. And I tried to call your office, and nobody picked up your phone. But then I talked to you on the Facebook, I'll talk to you on Facebook, and you get back to me. Now, I have the town of Hempstead license and number of the truck, I can hand in to you. It's the sticker is inside the truck, it's supposed to be on the outside of the truck. And the plate number, and this truck number, owner comes back to a 917. I mean, he's there till 4 o'clock in the morning, coming onto the property of Walmart with the cars and the rats on the Walmart property littering over there, which is against the town of Hempstead. And I called the town of Hempstead. We can't get through to the building department because they have weird hours. And they tell me, well, you know, you got to get a complaint. I said, well, nobody wants to seem to take this complaint. And they told me they called the police department. Well, being a former law enforcement officer myself, and they ping-pong it back between the town of Hempstead and the police department. The town of Hempstead is the one that's supposed to be enforcing the building codes in the violation. I mean, you complain about this lady with a window in her bar, and you got a truck over here, and then you have 2 trucks over here. till 3 o'clock in the morning selling food, and according to the town of Hempstead lady that answered one of the phones finally, it says they're only supposed to be out there till 9 o'clock in the night. I don't think 4 o'clock in the morning is 9 o'clock at night, and they're supposed to move every 15 minutes, and they know that.
Mr. Edmondson, we'd be happy to look into that for you. Thank you.
And another thing, talking about the former clerk that used to be here before the other clerk, that was an investigation and he got fired for sexual harassment, and there still has been no training here, because my lawyer is the one that has the case. That was his daughter, who works with them at Hempstead.
I know we're having a meeting, but I think it's important to put on record
Just
that...
one second, please. That's in my district, that hot dog truck.
Yes.
I know some people really love it, but they're not, after 9 o'clock, they're not supposed to be there, so we'll check it out. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
This issue with the invoices and the unpaid bills, understand that when animals go for vet care, it has to be approved by the legal department, which, from my understanding, is now Albina Kativa. It was previously Cheryl Petrie. So my question is, Mr. Ra, you would be informed, correct, about these bills? Would you be aware that these bills...
Absolutely not. Where did you get the impression that we approve, that the legal department gets bills?
Not gets bills, needs to approve of animals going for outside veterinary care.
Absolutely not.
Okay, well, Mr. Pastore is telling that to the majority of volunteers and staff.
See, this is the problem. Things like this happen and then we investigate and then they're not true. This is the problem that we have. We get information and you're getting some bad information. You know, maybe not everything that you're hearing is untrue, but some of the information you're getting is not accurate.
Maybe if your liaison spoke to some of the staff instead of...
My liaison does speak to the staff.
Okay, because many of the staff are still not being spoken to that have this information.
Okay, well, you can tell me who you recommend after the board meeting.
Okay, and as far as euthanasia then, why don't we get that on the record? Who authorizes the euthanasia?
I would imagine the doctor does. Certainly, you're looking at me. I certainly don't. I'm not there.
I'm talking about, well, you're the legal department, correct? So what do you handle regarding the animal shelter? So no one, Ms. Kativa, maybe she can come up here, she hears nothing?
She doesn't do that either. Those decisions are made at the shelter, not in the legal department.
Okay, so yes, I will give you a list of names, and I think that it's pretty alarming what Ms. Giris had to say. I don't know, has Ms. Giris been interviewed by? You say your liaison has interviewed the staff. Ms. Giris? No. So there were many people inside that coincidentally have not been interviewed.
There are a lot of employees at the animal shelter.
No, there were $3 million payroll, but there are not more than 50 people at the animal shelter, and this is 6 weeks now. So even if this person didn't want to interview each individual, how about find Michael Alaco, who did an extremely thorough investigation of 60 employees?
Yes.
He's gone. Where is he?
Yes, and where is all the information you gave him?
I can't answer that question. I have no idea what it
You
is.
should find out, Laura.
Does anybody know what's his name?
Michael Alaco. He was an investigator. Yeah, where is he? Crickets. You may want to look into that.
Okay.
I'll see you in a few minutes.
Is there anybody else? Okay, thank you.